Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to guide you into rest. Before we begin, tap like and subscribe so you'll always have a bedtime story waiting. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to know. They say the strangest things happen on the days that start out painfully normal. You wake up, follow the same steps, brush your teeth, throw on your uniform, clock in, and somewhere between the first order and the last, something shifts. You can't see it, not at first. It's like a breath caught in the air, something small that your brain tags as off but can't quite name. Then it starts crawling into your chest, tightening everything until you can't tell what's wrong anymore. My name's Damien. I was 19 back then, working the back line at a Burger King off Slide Road in Leach, Texas. The kind of store jammed between a pawn shop and a dead strip mall where half the neon still flickered, advertising stores that hadn't been open in years. I worked mostly evenings, the 4:30 to 11:30 shift. Predictable brain-off labor. Drop fries, flip patties, scrape grease, repeat. I was saving for community college, trying to get my gen eds done without crushing debt. Rent wasn't an issue. I still lived with my dad, a retired trucker who was half-deaf and asleep by 8 every night. We didn't talk much. No tension, no fights. Just two people quietly surviving in the same house, each staying out of the other's way because life had already handed us enough noise. Mariah had started 2 weeks earlier. 22. Transferred in from another Burger King across town. She had this sharp, don't mess with me energy. Serious eyes, quick wit, pepper spray clipped to her keyring. We weren't close, but we moved in sync on shift. It was an unspoken friendship built on eye rolls, silent teamwork, and the occasional deadpan joke when a customer acted entitled. That night, it was spring but still cold. The wind pushed dust across the cracked parking lot. Around 7:20, the dinner rush was dying down. I was salting fries when Mariah nudged me and nodded toward the drive-thru window. "You trust that ice cream guy out there?" she asked. I glanced out. Under a broken streetlight sat a faded yellow ice cream truck. Rust ate the sides, one brake light hung cracked, and a chalkboard sign leaned crooked against the window. "He's been there every night this week," she said. "Doesn't play music. Doesn't move. Just sits," I shrugged. "Never seen anyone buy from him." "Same." She paused, smirking. "Want to try it?" I treat. Normally I'd have laughed it off, but something in her voice, half curious, half uneasy, made me say yes. Mark, the night manager, never cared about breaks as long as customers didn't complain. So we took 10 and stepped out the side door. Up close, the truck looked worse. Paint dull and flaking, grime baked into the wheels. The guy inside wore a hood pulled low, gray stubble crawling along his chin. He didn't speak, just pointed to the menu. Vanilla swirl? Strawberry push pop, blue moon? The handwriting was shaky, uneven like a kid's. Mariah ordered vanilla. The man moved slowly, each motion deliberate, like he was wading through molasses. He handed her a paper cup with a wooden spoon. No smile, no thank you. Just watched her. We turned to leave, but then he reached out and caught her wrist. Not a hard grab, more like a claiming touch. The kind that freezes you before you even know why. "You shouldn't waste your looks in that grease box," he said. His voice was gravel smoothed with sugar, too calm to sound real. Mariah's body went rigid. She didn't say a word. I stepped forward. "Let her go." The man's gaze slid to me and he smiled, crooked, slow. "No one likes nosy boys." Then he released her hand. We walked back fast. Mariah tossed the ice cream into the trash before we even reached the door. "Screw that," she muttered, her voice shaky but trying not to be. We didn't tell Mark. It was too strange to explain. And honestly, we weren't sure how scared we were supposed to be. Not yet. The weirdness didn't fade. It thickened. It was like smoke that you couldn't see but could taste. Even the steady hum of the fryer sounded off, too sharp, too close. I told myself it was just nerves. Around 8:10, a guy at the counter started yelling about a mobile order he said he'd placed. Claimed Mariah had rung him up, only she hadn't. I'd been on register before break. She hadn't even touched it. "She's the one with the sharp nose and attitude, right?" he shouted, eyes darting around the store. She smiled weird when she took my payment. Mariah froze. Her face drained of color. "I didn't take his order," she said, looking at Mark. Mark blinked, half asleep as usual. "Sir, maybe you're thinking of another store." The man slammed a napkin holder off the counter before storming out. Mark didn't even log the incident. "People are nuts," he muttered, disappearing into the office. By 9:30, the place was quiet again. I went out back with the trash. The side lot runs along a narrow alley between us and the pawn shop. I was halfway to the dumpster when I saw him. The ice cream man wasn't in his truck this time. He was standing by the dumpster, a cigarette glowing between his fingers, staring into the trash like he'd lost something in there. His hoodie was up, shadowing his face, hands buried in his pockets. I froze, trash bags hanging from my hands. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The sound of the buzzing streetlight filled the space between us. I backed away slowly, not turning my back until I rounded the corner and took the long way inside. My chest felt tight, like I'd been holding my breath for too long. I told myself he was probably just some drifter, someone killing time. But who stands behind a Burger King at night without saying a word? When I got back inside, Mariah was wiping tables near the front. I didn't tell her what I'd seen. No point scaring her more than she already was. Around 10:15, she came out of the restroom looking pale and shaken. "My bag's been opened," she said quietly. "I think my keys are gone." "You sure you didn't drop them earlier?" I asked. She shook her head fast. "No, I keep them clipped inside the pocket." It was zipped when we went outside. And he was standing by the bins again. Her voice trembled. "I'm not going back out there." Mark, the manager, looked up from the mop sink, barely interested. "Could be anyone," he muttered. "You sure you didn't just misplace them?" We tore the place apart. The break room, the front counter, even the shelf in dry storage where she'd hung her bag. Nothing. Mark said he'd check the cameras in the morning, but his tone didn't make me believe it. He sounded like a man who'd say anything to get back to his chair. We cut corners closing up that night. Didn't deep clean, didn't restock. Just wiped what we had to. The air felt too heavy to stand still in for long. By 11:30, the doors were locked. Just the three of us left. Mariah and I walked out together, our steps quick and clipped across the empty parking lot. I held my keys like a weapon. Her car was parked closer to the road. The ice cream truck still sat in the distance, dark, silent, the same tilted chalkboard against the window. Then she stopped short. "Do you see that?" On her windshield, just above the wiper, was a single popsicle. Wrapped in flat green plastic, no label, no price, no writing. My stomach turned. I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the cops." They arrived about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, one old enough to look tired of everything, the other fresh-faced and eager. I explained what happened. Mariah backed me up. They nodded, took notes, and went to look. Except the truck was gone. No engine sound, no tires on gravel, no fading brake lights, just gone. The dust on the far end of the lot was undisturbed, like the thing hadn't driven away but had simply vanished. Mariah filed a report. I gave mine. The younger cop wrote everything carefully, jaw tight. The older one just nodded like he'd heard worse and didn't care. "All right," he said. "We'll keep an eye out." That was it. Mariah didn't come back the next night. Said she was heading to Amarillo to stay with her cousin for a bit. I couldn't blame her. The next day, Mark pulled the security footage. Everything up to 9 p.m. was fine, clear, normal, boring. Then static. The feed cut out completely and stayed black until morning. "Must have glitched," he said, scratching his chin. Weird timing, though. No one followed up. No detectives, no patrols. Just a shrug and another shift. I kept working. We were short-staffed and I needed the money. But I stopped taking breaks outside. I stayed close to the exits, started walking co-workers to their cars when I could. The truck didn't come back for a week. Then one Tuesday night I saw it again. Far down Slide Road, parked under a busted billboard near the Walgreens. No lights, no sound. Just sitting there, I didn't tell anyone. Mariah's locker was still empty, untouched. Sometimes I'd catch myself glancing at it, remembering the look on her face when she realized her keys were gone. And every time I walked past the alley, I'd feel that same wrongness deep in my ribs, like the air itself knew what had happened and didn't want me to forget. That was over a year ago. Mariah never came back. Word is she's doing okay now, new job, new city. She messaged me once. "Still think about that night? Hope you're staying safe." I still work nights at that Burger King. Haven't seen the ice cream truck in months. But some part of me still expects it, like it's out there idling somewhere just beyond the dark. Sometimes when I'm locking up, I look down the road. If the wind's right and the streetlights flicker, I swear I can hear the faint hum of a freezer engine. One that shouldn't still be running. I don't walk alone to my car anymore. And I never take popsicles from strangers. When something feels wrong, no matter how small, how quiet, listen to it. Because danger doesn't always knock. Sometimes it just parks nearby and waits for you to come closer. I've spent most of my adult life being two people at once. The woman no one notices and the woman who keeps everything from falling apart. My name's Lacey. I'm 41, single, and living in a rundown duplex off 3rd and Shelby, South Memphis. My younger brother, Raymond, sleeps in the next room. He's got cerebral palsy and seizures that come in the middle of the night, sharp and cruel like lightning. I've been taking care of him ever since Mama passed 5 years ago. She used to say I was born responsible. I guess that stuck, because I've been holding everything together with tape, coffee, and prayer for as long as I can remember. This is the story of that summer, the one where everything finally came undone, and the strange kind of peace that followed. The air conditioning at the Burger King on 3rd Street had been busted on and off since May. By late June, the place felt like a pressure cooker. The heat pressed down on you heavy and wet, the air thick with the smell of grease and salt. It didn't just stick to your clothes. It worked its way into your pores. Even after a shower, I'd still smell like the fryer, burnt oil and sweat. The managers liked to say the job was easy. Maybe it was if you were 19 pretty and didn't mind laughing when some man twice your age flirted just to score extra napkins. Me, I just worked. No flirting, no chatting, no pretending. Cheryl, my manager, made no secret of who she liked and who she didn't. I was never on the right side of that line. Too quiet, too slow, too tired. She'd look right through me when I clocked in, only noticing when something went wrong. I cleaned the fryer after everyone clocked out, scrubbed the walls until my fingers ached, hauled boxes in 90-degree heat because no one else would. I covered every unwanted shift. If someone called in sick, I said yes. Always yes. On paper, they called me reliable. In real life, that meant invisible. Then corporate announced a surprise audit. The word audit sent Cheryl spinning. She started repainting the break room walls and printing fake customer surveys like it'd save her job. She cut hours for anyone over 30, handing shifts to the new girls she liked to flirt with, the ones with nails too long to clean a grill but smiles that made her feel young. When I saw my schedule, my stomach dropped. I'd lost half my hours. Rent was already 2 weeks late. My brother's seizure meds had run out 3 days ago. I caught Cheryl in the stockroom. "Please," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't afford to lose these hours. I'll do double cleaning shifts if you need." She didn't even look up from her phone. "You want to keep your hours?" she said, smirking. "Try smiling more when customers complain. Maybe lose that limp while you're at it. You look slow on camera." Her laugh was dry and sharp like a knife sliding on glass. I swallowed hard. My knee had never healed right since that fall on the office stairs years ago. No railing, no compensation. Just pain that never left. That limp was mine for life. There wasn't a smile in the world that could hide it. The next morning, a man showed up. Clean haircut, spotless khakis, clipboard tucked under one arm. "Corporate trainee," he said, like it was a title worth bragging about. His name was Travis. He followed me through a whole shift, scribbling notes like I was some kind of experiment. He asked why my name tag was crooked, said my apron wasn't brand standard, asked why I sighed after every mop run. I told him it was just hot. He grinned like that was the wrong answer. By the time the lunch rush hit, the kitchen felt like hell's basement. The fryers hissed, the floor stuck to your shoes, and the air shimmered above the grills. I moved through it all like muscle memory. Wipe, fill, sweep, repeat. I'd been awake for 40 hours straight. My brother had another seizure the night before, and I hadn't slept since. Travis leaned near Cheryl during the rush, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "We need someone younger up front," he said, voice crisp, clipboard ready. "Fast food's visual now." Cheryl laughed. I kept working, my hands trembling from heat and exhaustion, the smell of burnt oil filling my throat. Somewhere deep inside me, something began to crack. Quietly, the way old glass does right before it shatters. That hit me right in the chest. I finished my shift like nothing had happened. I didn't cry in the bathroom. Didn't curse. Didn't even talk. I just sat in the stockroom after close, the lights buzzing faintly overhead, the smell of fryer oil and bleach wrapping around me like a second skin. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something deeper, something that felt like my bones were tired of holding me up. The next morning, I was bagging a breakfast order when my phone started ringing in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it rang again, and again. By the time I checked, there were 6 missed calls, all from my neighbor. My stomach dropped. When I got home, the ambulance was already gone. Mrs. Dawson from next door stood on the porch wringing her hands. "He's stable," she said. "They took him to Methodist South. He had a bad one, but they said he came around." Inside, the air smelled like antiseptic and panic. His pillow was damp from sweat, and the sheets were twisted around him like ropes. I sat by his bed holding his hand, feeling the slow rhythm of his breathing return. For 2 hours, I just sat there whispering nonsense. "You're okay, baby. I'm right here." When I finally left for work, the sun was already high, the streets shimmering with heat. I was late and I knew it. Cheryl didn't ask why. She didn't even look curious. She just handed me a folded piece of paper. 3 strikes, she said. "You're done?" Her tone was flat, rehearsed, like she'd been waiting for this moment. I didn't argue, didn't beg, just took off my visor, set it on the counter, and walked out. The door swung shut behind me with that hollow whoosh, and suddenly I was standing in the blinding heat. No job, no backup plan, just the sound of traffic and my heart pounding in my ears. The concrete shimmered, the air thick enough to choke on. I glanced across the parking lot, not even sure what I was looking for, and then I saw it. A white sedan, windows sealed tight, engine running, parked in the disabled spot right in front, Travis's rental. I could see the outline of his arm on the steering wheel, phone up to his ear. Probably updating Cheryl's numbers. Probably sipping an iced coffee while the rest of us melted inside. Something shifted in me then. Not rage, something colder, clearer. I didn't go home. Not right away. Instead, I crossed the street to the payday loan office. The air inside was stale and overconditioned. The woman behind the glass had pink nails and a smile that looked practiced. "How much you got left?" she asked, tapping the counter. $83, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. She printed a check, slid it under the glass. "You want to roll it forward?" I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "I'm done." That was the last thing I said in that place. I didn't go back to Burger King, didn't text anyone, didn't explain. I just disappeared like grease down a drain, silent, final. A week later, word got around. Cheryl got demoted. Corporate found doctored time cards, fake surveys, the works. One of the cashiers who'd quit months ago filed a report about Travis, said he'd made comments during her training. Corporate reassigned him to another region. Quietly, of course. They never say those things out loud. I heard it from a friend who still worked there. "You could come back, you know," she told me. "Things are different now." I told her thanks. But no. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already found another job. Nothing fancy, nothing anyone brags about, but it paid cash and nobody there told me to smile or called me slow. 3 nights a week I cleaned the bathrooms at the city bus station. I wore a janitor's jumpsuit, kept my headphones in and hummed while I worked. It's funny. When you stop caring what people think, you start breathing easier. A few months later, one of the new Burger King girls said she saw me there once. Said I was wiping down the sinks humming. Didn't even look up when she came in. She told them I looked peaceful, not sad, not broken, just quiet. They asked if I seemed okay. She looked like someone who finally stopped pretending, the girl said. And she was right. I don't walk with pride. Not exactly, but I walk lighter now. I still limp, yeah, but I don't apologize for it anymore. I take care of my brother. I pay the bills on time. When I clean, I do it my way. Music in my ears, rhythm in my hands, nobody standing over my shoulder with a clipboard. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. The kind you only earn after the world stops seeing you. The world may not clap for you. It may not even notice when you walk away. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just leave. Not with a bang. Not in anger. Just with your head high, your heart intact, and your own quiet peace. Sometimes that's the only way out that's truly yours. Long before any of this began, before the shift changes, before Jake vanished, before I started checking the security mirror every night, I just needed somewhere quiet to start over. Oceanside seemed like a good place for that. Not glamorous, but the air had enough salt and sunlight to scrub clean the parts of me that still ached from the breakup. I was 24, sleeping on a futon in my aunt's spare room with 2 duffel bags and a heart that still flinched every time I saw my ex's old hoodie at the bottom of my bag. I didn't have a plan, just the kind of restless need that comes after too many endings. I needed work, something simple, something that didn't ask questions. The Burger King across from the surf shop was close enough to walk to, and they were always hiring. No résumé, no expectation. Just a pulse and a willingness to smell like fryer oil until midnight. The first few weeks were a blur of grease and exhaustion, burned fingers, impatient customers, managers barking over the headset. The kind of people who thought asking for extra ranch meant they owned you. I kept my head down, took the night shifts, and learned to move without being noticed. Then Jake got hired. He was a couple years older, tan from the beach, all slouched shoulders and easy confidence. He'd shown up late to his interview wearing board shorts and a hoodie that probably still smelled like beer. Somehow he still walked out with the job. He worked the same nights I did, flipping burgers beside me and calling me California, even though I told him more than once I was from Arizona. We got close fast, not in the spark-filled way, but in the way 2 tired people do when they find someone else who doesn't need words to feel less alone. After closing, he'd wait with me in the parking lot. We'd sit in his beat-up Camry with the windows cracked, listening to the ocean slap against the rocks beyond the highway. The smell of salt and old fries mixed with the night air. One night he said, half grinning, "We should quit. Open a smoothie shack or something." You'd run it and I'd be the hot surfer guy selling acai bowls. I laughed, harder than I had in months. But this isn't a love story. At least not that kind, because while I was learning how to breathe again, someone else was already watching. It took me a while to notice Ryan. He'd been there before me, always early, always quiet. The kind of guy who double-checked every stock shelf and stayed late without complaining when the fryer filter exploded mid-shift. At first, he just blended in, part of the background noise of the job. Then the overlap started. My break schedule changed, subtly, but always to line up with his. I told myself it was coincidence, but then my locker jammed twice in 1 week, and both times Ryan appeared like clockwork, a paperclip in hand and a strange half-smile on his face. "Need a hand?" he'd ask. "Thanks," I said the first time, meaning it. The second time, my skin crawled as he jiggled the latch open. A few nights later, I left my apron in the back room and came back to find it neatly folded on the counter. Next to it sat a lemon poppy seed muffin wrapped in a napkin. No note, just sitting there like a quiet offering. It looked perfect, like something from a cafe display. I didn't eat it. Something about it felt too deliberate, too personal. Jake thought it was funny. "Maybe the guy just likes you," he said, tearing open a stale cookie. "Or maybe you've got, like, muffin karma." "Or maybe," I muttered. "He's the kind of guy who knows exactly when someone's alone." Jake raised an eyebrow but didn't push. That was the thing about him, he never made me explain. He'd just sit beside me when things felt off, hands still smelling faintly of fryer grease, staring out at the highway lights. Then, one night Jake didn't show up. At first, I figured he'd overslept or gotten stuck somewhere. But 3 days passed, no calls, no texts. His phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail after that. I told myself it was car trouble, or maybe he finally followed through on that joke about disappearing into Baja. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't left, he'd just been taken out of frame. After 5 days, I drove to Jake's place. It was a sagging beach house a few blocks from the pier, the kind with chipped blue paint and a porch that tilted like it had given up on trying. He shared it with 2 other guys who were rarely home. His car was parked out front, windows fogged from the inside. A small stack of unopened mail clung to the screen door like it had been there for days. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Nothing. The next day, the manager at work told me Jake quit. Just like that. No call, no notice. "It happens," she said with a shrug. "People bail all the time." But Jake wouldn't just bail. Not without his hoodie still hanging in the lost and found bin. Not without saying goodbye. A week later, a postcard appeared. No stamp. No envelope. Just slid under the kitchen door sometime between dinner rush and closing. The front was a washed-out picture of some random coastline, gray waves and pale sky. On the back, in neat, careful handwriting, it said, "Sometimes people don't know what's good for them, so I help." No name. No return address. I showed it to my manager. She frowned, said it was probably a prank, and tossed it into the trash like it was gum wrapper. I waited until her back was turned, then fished it out and shoved it in my pocket. That night I walked to my car with my keys threaded between my fingers. The lot was empty except for the hum of the streetlight. I didn't see anyone, but when I unlocked my car, I noticed it, a smear of wet sand across the driver's side window. My car had been parked on clean pavement, under a light miles from the nearest patch of dirt. The beach was 2 blocks away. There was no reason for sand. After that, I stopped sleeping well. Ryan still came to work every day. He was cheerful now, too cheerful. Not the quiet, awkward guy I'd met, but someone else entirely. His eyes met mine more often. He'd linger a second too long in conversation. One night, while we refilled the soda station, he said, "Funny how people just disappear." I didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "You never know who's paying attention, right?" Another day, he offered me another muffin. Banana nut this time. "I'm not hungry," I said. He tilted his head. "You used to smile more. You seemed happier before." "Before what?" I asked. He didn't answer, just smiled, slow and knowing. I stopped parking in the back after that. Started locking my car the second I got in. I caught myself checking the mirrors constantly. In the freezer, in the supply closet, even across the street where shadows bled into the motel neon. I took the postcard to the police. They made a note, promised to look into it. But Jake didn't have close family and no one filed a missing persons report. No one cared enough to push, so I did. I called around, tried to find out if he'd left town, checked with his roommates, but it went nowhere. It's been 6 months now. Ryan still works mornings. Still bakes muffins sometimes. Still says my name like it's a secret we share. I don't talk to him anymore. I keep my phone on me at all times. Check my car tires every night. But sometimes, just sometimes, I find sand on the hood again. Just a little. Enough to remind me. He never asked me out. Never touched me. He just waited. And once after close, when the store was dark and the soda machines hummed softly in the background, he passed by me and whispered, "I knew you'd end up here eventually." That was when it clicked. Monsters don't always hide in forests or abandoned houses. Sometimes they fold your apron. Sometimes they bring you muffins. Sometimes they smile when someone else disappears. Trust what you feel. Listen to the tension in your chest, not the words people say, because the scariest people are the ones who never cross the line. They just stand close enough to watch you trip over it. I never thought I'd still be working at Burger King 3 years after my divorce. When my husband left, I just needed something steady, something with hours, with a schedule, something that could keep me and my girls from falling apart. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I figured things out, but temporary stretched into years. Long enough for Ava to turn 17, and for Lily to start looking more like a woman than the child I still wanted her to be. The rent kept climbing. My car coughed more than it ran, and most days I moved through shifts like a ghost, mopping floors, bagging fries, avoiding mirrors. Routine kept me sane. Routine meant no thoughts, no bills, no loneliness, just movement. Then came him. Mr. Beck first showed up one Friday in April, 2:15 p.m. sharp. He rolled in on a motorized chair and parked himself at table 5 near the soda station. He ordered 2 Bacon Kings and a Diet Coke. Ate slow, deliberate bites. Stayed almost 2 hours just watching the lobby. At first, I figured he was lonely, one of those regulars who just needed a face to talk to. I'd seen plenty of them. He'd say things like, "Nice hair," or, "You remind me of my youngest." His voice was calm, his tone too normal to trigger alarm. I smiled when he spoke, the same empty smile I used for everyone. Numb, polite, safe. But 3 weeks in, he said something that made my stomach twist. "I saw your girls waiting in the car," he told me, smiling like it was casual. I laughed even though my throat went dry. "Yeah, they wait for me sometimes. Teenagers," I said. After that, I told Ava to park a block away, just in case. By summer, the air inside that Burger King felt thicker whenever he came in. He started leaving tips, 10, 20 bucks at a time. I'd tell him no, push the bills back across the counter. He'd frown, but he'd never argue. Just rolled away slowly, eyes on me until the door shut. Then came the note. It was waiting in the women's restroom one night. Scrawled in blue pen across a napkin, "You should smile more. I liked you better before you got cold." My hands shook. I washed them 3 times before leaving the stall. My manager shrugged when I showed him. "Creepy guys exist," he said. "Just don't look at him." I wanted to scream that this was different, that it felt personal, but I was too tired to fight. A week later, I learned what different meant. Mila, one of the new girls, barely 19, was taking trash to the back hall when I saw him roll toward her. His hand caught her wrist. His grin stretched too wide, like he was testing how far he could go. "Let her go," I yelled, pushing him back. He released her immediately, his expression blank, as if nothing had happened. The police came. A report was filed. He was banned from the restaurant. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. 2 days later, the mobile order system went haywire. Huge orders popped up under the name Mr. Beck. 20 burgers, 30 nuggets, 10 fries, each one prepaid with a $100 digital card. None of them picked up. The system would clear the orders and new ones would appear. Over and over. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped. I started staying late to check the logs myself, staring at that name as if looking long enough would explain it. Maybe that's when I started to unravel. I began suspecting everyone. Every delivery driver, every online order. Sometimes in the middle of my shift, I'd lock myself in the restroom just to breathe. I deleted the mobile app from my phone, but the phantom notifications kept coming. Little pings in my head, impossible to ignore. Ava noticed. "Mom, you okay?" she asked one night as I sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." Then one afternoon in July, a woman came in. She looked about 40, pale with ash-gray eyes that wouldn't settle. She ordered a coffee but didn't drink it. "You work here, right?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." "You remember that man in the wheelchair? Mr. Beck?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, I remember him." Her eyes darted to the floor. "I live 2 blocks from his house. It smells bad, like something died." My manager called the police again. That evening, they found him, dead in his home for nearly 3 weeks. The report said there were cats everywhere, half-starved, their paw prints tracking through dust and blood. They'd eaten his left foot. He'd likely died 10 days after leaving that note in our restroom. I went home and couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My daughters laughed softly at something on TV, and the sound made my skin crawl. The next morning, I walked into Burger King, handed in my visor and name tag, and told my manager, "I need a few mental health days." He nodded without looking up. "Take your time," he said. But I never went back. She nodded, handed me my last check without a word, and cracked open a bottle of water before returning to her paperwork. Therapy started the next week. Ava came with me once, sat quiet in the corner, and I saw my exhaustion reflected in her posture. The way she hugged her knees, the way her eyes darted to the clock. Lily cried in the other room that day, though she never said why. For a while, therapy helped, until the mobile orders came back. Notifications after midnight, orders under his name, all timed for when my old shifts used to start. Each one dropped a cold weight into my gut. I blocked the app, changed my phone number, changed my account, spent hours with tech support, talking to strangers in quiet call centers who promised to look into it. Eventually, the orders stopped. For a month, I believed it was over. Then, one slow afternoon, I was on drive-through duty. The lunch rush had passed. The restaurant hummed with the soft rattle of fryers and the faint pop of oil. My mind drifted almost peaceful until static burst through the headset. A sharp hiss, then a voice. "You looked better when you smiled." That's all. Just that one line. Then silence. My pulse spiked. I ripped off the headset and stepped back like it had burned me. My manager jogged over, asking what happened. We checked the system. No playback, no glitch, no record, nothing. But I'd heard it. His voice. Calm, familiar, curling through the static like smoke. Mila had replaced the drive-through intercom weeks ago. I didn't tell her what happened. I just handed her a bottle of sanitizer and said the mic needed cleaning. Then I went to the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet, hands pressed to my chest until the shaking stopped. After that, I started bringing a thermos of coffee to work, something heavy and real to hold. One of the therapists suggested I keep a small grounding object, a crystal, smooth and solid enough to anchor me when panic came. I kept it in my pocket, touching it whenever my mind started to drift into that dark, hollow space. At home, I started talking to Ava and Lily about safety, locking cars, keeping the lights on outside, never taking tips from strangers. I heard myself giving the kind of advice I used to think belonged in crime shows, not family kitchens. But the world had changed for me, or maybe I just started seeing it clearly for the first time. That smell from his house never left me. The rot, the ammonia, the faint sweetness that clung to my hair long after reading the report. And the note. It haunted the mirror in my memory. You should smile more. I burned it, but the words still lingered, whispering when the house got quiet. Eventually, I quit Burger King for good. I told them I couldn't work nights anymore. Couldn't handle the dark parking lot, the headset voices, the repetition. I found a part-time receptionist job at a small dental office. 15 hours a week. Clean floors, soft lighting, the hum of drills instead of fryers. The pay was smaller, but I slept through the night for the first time in years. I told my girls this was our last stop. No more running. I wanted them to grow up remembering a mother who could still laugh. And I do laugh now at their jokes, at their messes, at life itself. Our apartment feels full again. Music playing, dishes clattering, their voices overlapping in the kitchen. But sometimes, when it's late and the lights flicker, I still hear that intercom hiss. That split second before the voice. Smile more. I know it isn't real. I know he's gone. But fear isn't rational. It just waits, patient and shapeless until you breathe wrong and let it in again. When I sign checks, I check the line twice. When I walk past dark windows, I keep my eyes forward. After we moved west, I thought distance would erase the shadow of him. But it didn't. My body still braces for him. This man I've never truly seen, only felt. In therapy, I said I wanted to process grief from my divorce. What I really learned was how to rebuild a spine, how to define safety in a world that can't promise it. Sometimes I still feel cold, like something's watching, but I remind myself it's only me now, the echo of fear, the voice I gave shape to. Then, one warm afternoon in late September, I was waiting to pick Ava up from soccer practice. Sitting in a Starbucks parking lot, sun pouring through the windshield, I scrolled mindlessly through my phone and froze. A mobile order. Placed for that exact day, 5:02 p.m. Name: Mr. Beck. My throat tightened. I stared at the screen until the digits blurred. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A new message notification. You never smiled again. I called the cafe immediately. The manager checked the cameras. No person, no car. Just the empty lot and the receipt on their system. A glitch. That night I held my daughters close. Checked every window. Locked each door twice, then again. At some point my breathing steadied. I realized I wasn't waiting for a knock anymore. Just the quiet. Julia Cameron once said, "The mind is that safe house." I can't remember who said, "Guard it well," but I understand it now. You can't outrun someone who lives inside your head, and you can't heal if you keep hiding from the world that still loves you. True. Safety isn't about locked doors. It's about reclaiming what fear stole. Trust, laughter, light. Healing isn't silence. It's learning to live again, to let the light in, and to smile even when the shadows still whisper. I've always believed quiet people hear the loudest things, the kind of truths that echo when everyone else stops listening. The world rushes past most folks, but not me. I move slow, steady. Same alarm at 5:15 a.m. every morning. Same bitter coffee, black, no sugar. Same 15-minute drive down Main Street in my rusted-out 97 Corolla. Windshield cracked, heater forever stuck on warm. I've worked at the Burger King off the interstate in Billings for 11 years now. Same shifts, same uniform, same songs looping through the overhead speakers like ghosts trapped in an old jukebox no one's brave enough to unplug. Around town, people know me as Joel. Some don't remember the name. just that I'm the quiet one handing them their bacon croissant with a nod and a tired smile. I'm not much for talking. Talking makes people curious. They want your story, and mine's not something I tell anymore. I live in a small trailer back off the highway, tucked between pine trees so thick you can't see the road. Used to be a family there once, me, my wife, and our daughter. She was 17 when it happened. Sweet kid, always had her music turned up too loud. Hair tied in that messy ponytail she said made her look effortlessly cool. Then one night, wrong place, wrong driver, wrong everything. She was gone in a blink. What was left behind wasn't silence. It was something louder, a kind of ringing that never really stops. Kara reminded me of her. 17 too, loud in that careless teenage way. Cracking jokes, blasting pop songs through the prep speakers, calling me Old Man Joel whenever I grumbled about her playlist. She teased me about my car, said she was going to start a GoFundMe for a replacement. I never said much, but I listened. Always listened. Then one Monday morning, she didn't show up. No text, no call, just gone. By Wednesday, everyone stopped pretending she was just sleeping in. Her mom came by the counter, hands shaking around a coffee cup she didn't drink from. The police showed up the next day, asked if I'd seen Kara after her Saturday shift. I told them no, and that was the truth. She'd clocked out at 2:56 p.m. and never came back. They searched the lot, the ditches, the woods behind the restaurant. Flyers went up at every gas station and diner window in Billings. Her classmates made TikToks with her photo, hashtags and broken heart emojis, but nothing. No leads, just another face fading in the scroll. I kept working. Maybe that sounds cold, but when you've lost before, you learn. The world doesn't stop for grief. It doesn't even slow down. The morning after the search dogs came through, I was back at my prep table at 6:55, slicing tomatoes like I had 100 times before. The weight of the knife felt familiar, grounding. That's what I liked about the job. Routine, repetition. Something to hold on to when your mind starts drifting places it shouldn't. You cut, you build, you clean, you don't think. A week passed, then two. A new girl started, Emma, I think. Nervous thing, barely 18, always burning her fingers on the fry basket, flinching whenever someone spoke too loud. She didn't talk much either, which suited me fine. But I noticed something. Every time she walked past the freezer, she'd glance at it quick, like she was expecting something to be standing just inside when she opened the door. People forget fast. The cops stopped coming around. Kara's picture still hung by the drive-through window, corners curling, a thin film of grease and dust gathering over her smile. The world had already begun moving on, until that Tuesday morning. It was cold enough that the frost on the window still clung when I came in early. The lights in the back were off, so the kitchen sat half in shadow, just me and the low hum of the freezer compressor. I pinned up the day's prep list on the corkboard, the same way I did every morning. And that's when I saw it. A photo taped crookedly to the board. Not with the safety sheets or the cleaning schedule. Just by itself, like someone had stuck it there fast, like they didn't want to be caught doing it. It was a picture of Kara, not one I'd ever seen before. She wasn't smiling. Her mouth was slightly open. Her eyes caught mid-blink like someone had startled her. The photo was grainy, off-center, as if taken from behind glass or from too far away. Beneath it, scrawled in thick black ink, were two words, jagged, uneven, like they'd been carved instead of written. Still here. I just stood there. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe. Because behind her in the background of that photo was something that stopped my pulse cold. The wood grain paneling, the faded wallpaper curling near the floor. It was my daughter's old room. I hadn't stepped foot in that room for over 4 years. After she died, I'd turned the key and walked away. Never boxed anything up, never washed the sheets. The smell of her shampoo clung to the pillow. The dent in the comforter still shaped where she used to sleep, curled up like a cat. That room had stayed sealed in time, preserved the way it was the day I lost her. But now I was looking at it through Kara's eyes. I didn't say a word to the manager. Didn't pull anyone aside or tell them what I saw. I just finished my shift like always. Made the coffee, cleaned the restrooms, bagged the fryer grease, smiled at customers like nothing had split open beneath my ribs. Then I went home. I stood outside that locked door for a long time, maybe an hour, the key trembling in my hand. It felt heavy, like it knew what waited on the other side. When I finally turned it, the smell hit me first. Dust, old fabric, and something faintly sweet and sour beneath it. The room was exactly as I'd left it. Bed unmade, posters still hanging limp on the walls, a cracked phone case on the dresser. Nothing seemed touched but the air. The air felt wrong. Not empty. Used. Like someone had been breathing there who shouldn't have been. I stepped in, slow and quiet, scanning every shadowed corner. When I reached the closet, I hesitated before pulling it open. Inside, just an old shoebox filled with her school notebooks and a broken digital camera. But when I lifted the box, I saw it. A strip of duct tape pressed flat against the carpet. Still sticky, still new, like something had been fastened there recently, then torn away. I backed out, closed the door, locked it again. The next morning, I called in sick. First time in 11 years. I didn't explain. No one asked. When I went back a few days later, the photo was gone. Not thrown out. Not taken down by the manager. Just gone as if it had never existed. The corkboard looked normal again. Safety sheets, coupons, employee of the month printouts. Kara's missing poster by the window had disappeared too. No one mentioned it. Emma worked mornings now with a new guy, Derek. I overheard her laughing once while I waited for my final check. That sound, uncarefree, unbothered, made my stomach twist. The world had moved on, but I hadn't. I quit that day. Didn't clean out my locker. Didn't wait for payroll. Just left. Sometimes I drive past the Burger King at night. The lights still flicker in the windows. Customers still roll through with their coffee orders, their breakfast sandwiches, their same tired routines. No one talks about Kara anymore. No one mentions what happened. But I know this much. No one touches the tomato slicer. I'd left it clean, blade warm from my last shift sitting on the prep counter. No one ever put it back. Some nights I sit on the trailer steps listening. The trees whisper. Leaves rustle. Sometimes a branch cracks in the wrong direction. Slow, deliberate, like something moving just out of sight. The police never found proof. Said there wasn't enough to investigate further. Maybe they were right. Maybe I imagined the photo. Maybe the guilt built it from memory and noise. But I know what I saw. That photo was real. And that room wasn't empty. I moved out 3 months later. Couldn't sleep there anymore. The silence pressed too close, too knowing. Now I live deeper in town. I don't work mornings. I don't cut tomatoes. And I don't open locked doors. The world still moves fast, but I don't. I learned the hard way that silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means something is waiting, something that already knows your name. Even the quietest places carry echoes, and some of them are listening. Success wasn't supposed to feel like this. When I hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, I thought something inside me would shift. That I'd wake up feeling weightless, admired, maybe even complete. But all I felt was exhaustion. Not the kind that comes from work, but the kind that sinks into your bones. I was tired of pretending to be inspired. Tired of chasing numbers that never filled the silence. Tired of cutting my life into bite-sized clips and calling it authenticity. By 14,000, I had abs sharp enough for thumbnails, brand deals from discount supplement companies, and girls sliding into my DMs with hard eyes and half-naked selfies. I had a decent ring light setup, a fake smile I could turn on at will, and a life that looked perfect through the lens. I filmed daily, posted 3 times a week, worked out twice a day, called it content. But none of it mattered. Not after Haley. We'd dated for 2 years. She knew me before the algorithm did, before the gym grind captions, before I started measuring worth and engagement rates. When she left, she said, "You care more about how we look than how we are." I told her she was overreacting. She wasn't. She said I filmed our life like I was already editing her out of it. So I did what any emotionally stunted 21-year-old would do. I turned the breakup into a video. Moving on, staying strong. Hoodie on, lo-fi beats, soft lighting to make my tears cinematic. It got 47,000 views. I read every comment. Most said things like, "Stay up, King." A few said, "Bro's monetizing his pain." They weren't wrong. Then Lana messaged me. Her first words were, "You're brave." She followed me the same night the video went live. Her profile looked curated. Just a few posts, all clean, muted colors. Private account. But her profile picture caught me. Blonde hair glowing under sunset light, high cheekbones, a hotel balcony behind her. She said she was in Miami for spring break, said she liked my mindset, said she had a suite in Champagne and wanted to share it with someone real. I didn't question it. I was lonely, hollowed out by Haley's absence, desperate to fill the space she left behind. When you're hurt, attention starts to look a lot like love. Our first date was on the rooftop of her hotel, overlooking Collins Avenue. Neon lights hummed below us. She wore a red dress that didn't belong to the night. Her lipstick matched. She smiled easily, but her eyes never quite softened. "Tell me about your journey," she said. "What's it like growing an audience from nothing?" I told her everything. She never said much about herself. Said she liked to stay private. Yet she kept her phone out, recording little clips, me laughing, stretching, sipping from a glass. I noticed her camera flash once under the table, angled at my torso. She grinned when I caught her. "Just memories," she said. I didn't mind. Everyone filmed everything now. Still, something about her felt staged, like she was playing a role she'd memorized too well. 3 days in, we jet-skied across Biscayne Bay. Her laugh echoed over the water, loud and perfect. On the 4th, she invited me to her suite. The place was immaculate. Marble countertops, spotless mirrors, a faint scent of vanilla and alcohol. She poured champagne into crystal glasses and told me I was different. I liked the way she said it, like I was being chosen. Like I finally mattered outside of a comment section. That night, after filming a fitness promo downtown for some no-name creatine brand, we stopped at the Burger King near her hotel. It was just past 11. The air was thick, sticky, the kind that makes your clothes cling. She ordered fries, barely touched them. I got a double Whopper extra cheese because I hadn't eaten all day. We sat in a booth by the window, neon light flickering across her face. "I used to come here after class," I said, laughing. "Back when I thought eating 2 burgers was bulking." She smiled politely, scrolling through her phone. "Who's Haley?" she asked suddenly. The name hit me like a cold drink spilled down my spine. "Just someone I used to date." "She sounds basic," Lana said, not looking up. Something in her tone, flat, calculated, turned the air heavier, like she just edited part of my life out mid-sentence. We walked back in silence. The suite felt colder that night, too sterile, too clean. She poured drinks, handed me one without looking. Then she said softly, "Take off your mic." I frowned. "What?" She gestured to my collar. "You're still recording." I froze. My phone was still in my pocket, the tiny red light blinking faintly through the fabric. I hadn't even realized it was on. "I'm not mad," she said, voice calm, almost tender. "Just curious." She tilted her head. "Is this what you did with her too? Film everything? Edit the pain until it looks pretty?" I didn't answer. My throat felt tight. She smiled faintly, that same distant, knowing smile. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small silver USB stick. Tossed it onto the bed like a coin. "Watch this alone," she said. "Then decide if you really want me here." She turned, grabbed her purse, and walked out before I could ask anything. No goodbye, no explanation. Just the sound of the door clicking shut behind her. Clean, final, almost rehearsed. And for the first time since I'd started filming my life, I didn't reach for my phone. I just sat there staring at that USB stick under the dim hotel light, wondering how long it had been recording me. I just stood there, heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my throat, afraid even to breathe. My hands trembled as I plugged the USB into my laptop. The screen flickered, glitched once, then settled. There were folders, dozens of them. At first glance, they looked like old vlog files. Me walking across campus, picking up coffee, driving, sitting at my desk editing at 2 a.m. But the angles were wrong, slightly off-center. Sometimes zoomed too far, sometimes too close, like someone was hiding behind a bush or a window. The lighting shifted in ways I didn't recognize. Someone had been filming me. Not just screen recording, filming, watching. I clicked another file. It was Haley and me outside our old dorm. I was laughing, wearing that gray hoodie I'd lost months ago. She climbed into my car. The timestamp read 2 months ago. My stomach dropped. I hadn't filmed that. I hadn't even posted that day. The dread came in slow, crawling under my skin until I could barely move. There was another folder, regret therapy. I opened it. Inside were dozens of clips of Lana, but not the version I knew, the glamorous one in red dresses and champagne. This Lana was thinner, her skin pale and drawn. Her hair hung limp, greasy at the roots. She sat on the floor in a bathrobe, the light dim, the walls behind her stained and peeling. In the first video, she whispered, "He'll come back when she breaks him." Her voice was soft, rhythmic, almost childlike. She rocked slightly as she spoke. "I'll give him everything she never could." I clicked another. "He needs someone who gets it," she said, staring right into the camera. "Who gets him?" She never did. I've always known. My fingers went numb. I couldn't feel the keyboard anymore. Every part of me wanted to shut the laptop, but I couldn't stop. I scrolled until I reached the final clip. The thumbnail froze my breath. It was me, walking into the Burger King earlier that night. The same hoodie, same lighting, same reflection in the window. The timestamp said today, 30 minutes ago. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed through the suite. My pulse roared in my ears. She never came back. I waited until 3 a.m., pacing the room, replaying every second I'd spent with her. The suite stayed silent, empty. Her things were gone, no clothes in the closet, no shoes by the bed. The drawers were clean, the minibar untouched. The robe she always wore was folded neatly on the chair, as if she'd vanished mid-scene. At the front desk, the concierge looked confused when I asked about her. "Sir, no one under that name has been checked in," he said. The credit card she'd used had been declined. I called the police, showed them the footage. They took my laptop, said it looked like a possible case of identity theft or stalking. Maybe she'd been following me for weeks, maybe longer, but I could tell from their faces they didn't believe me. Not really. Not until I showed them the last clip. The Burger King footage. That's when they went quiet. They sent officers to canvass the area, checked security cameras, nothing. No one matching her description, no trace. After that, my upload slowed, then stopped altogether. I deleted the vlogs with Haley first, then the breakup video, then the entire channel. My subscribers dropped off, comments turned to static. People asked why I'd ghosted, why I'd left LA, why the guy who preached grind and mindset suddenly disappeared. I moved back home, stayed with my mom, got a job at a gym, stopped filming everything, but I still thought about Lana or whoever she was. It's been over a year. I'm in Texas now. Different name on socials. No vlogs, no face, no personal life. Just strength training and mental health tips. Anonymous, safe. Sometimes I get DMs from old followers. "Bro, what happened to you and that blonde girl from Miami? Did you really date a stalker? Why'd you delete everything?" I never answer. Part of me wants to forget. But another part knows forgetting isn't possible when the fear is stitched into your bones. Because here's the truth. I walked into that Burger King thinking I had control. That I was the narrator, the editor, the one who got to decide what stayed in frame. I was wrong. Lana didn't want attention, she wanted authorship. She studied me, memorized me, learned my camera angles, my captions, the rhythm of my voice. She became a mirror that smiled back the way I wanted it to. And when that wasn't enough, she rewrote the story. I haven't seen her since. But when I check into hotels, I always glance at the hallway cameras. Always pull the blinds tight before sleeping. 2 weeks ago, I saw her again, or someone who looked exactly like her. It was past midnight, outside a gas station in Arizona. I was heading to Albuquerque, tired, half awake. She was standing by the ice machine, hood up, phone in her hand. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, painting her face in pale strokes. She turned. Our eyes met. My stomach twisted itself into a knot. She smiled, small, knowing, and then she was gone. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe I'm just paranoid. That's what I tell myself. But when I reached my motel an hour later, there was a small USB drive waiting at the front desk. No note, no label, I haven't opened it. Maybe I never will. Because there's a line between documenting your life and surrendering it, between sharing your truth and letting someone else script it for you. I spent years filming other people, cutting their words to fit my narrative. And in the end, I found someone who did the same to me. That's the real horror. When your life becomes content, someone will always want a piece of the script, even if they have to write it in blood. The more we filter our lives through lenses and edits, the easier it is to lose track of what's real and who's still watching. I didn't come to Georgia looking for trouble. I came for quiet, for air that didn't taste like shouting. After months of surviving my roommate's chaos in Florida, her mood swings, the slammed doors, the way every argument ended with her crying louder, just so the neighbors would think it was me, I packed what fit into my hatchback and drove north until the noise in my head began to fade. Savannah wasn't quiet. Not really. It breathed in slow waves of heat and traffic, but the name sounded soft, like something I could finally breathe into. I found a sublet above a dry cleaner, the kind of place where the air always smelled like detergent and burnt lint. I got a job that asked no questions, evening shifts at the Burger King on Abercorn Street. The work became a pattern I could rely on. Clock in, count the drawer, take orders, mop floors, close up, and vanish into the dark before morning traffic stirred. I learned to blend in. No number given, no stories shared, no friendships made. When coworkers asked where I was from, I said, Florida. Moved here recently. Nothing more. I wasn't there to connect. I was there to survive. For 2 months, everything stayed small and predictable. Rainy nights. Broken ice machines. The hiss of fryers between lunch and dinner rush. I started recognizing the regulars. Construction workers half asleep at the counter. Parents bribing tired kids with milkshakes. Couples who never spoke. None of it felt strange. Nothing had a shadow behind it. Until that Tuesday. It was 8:30 p.m. and the sky had been coughing up rain for hours. Sheets of water slapped against the glass and the wind tossed the drive-through sign back and forth like it was trying to break free. Everything smelled like wet cardboard and fryer grease. That's when a brown pickup rolled through. He ordered 1 cheeseburger and a Coke. No fries, no combo, no small talk. When I slid the window open to hand him the bag, he smiled. Too long, like he was memorizing my face instead of taking his food. You got the kind of face people remember, he said. I forced a polite smile. Have a good night. I shut the window, trying to shake the unease. His tone wasn't threatening, just wrong in a way that clung. I counted the change, turned back to refill napkins, and told myself it was nothing. 10 minutes later, the headset crackled again. Same voice. Hey, sorry, too much ice in that Coke. I looked out. Same truck, rain streaming down the windshield, wipers off. I made another drink, handed it over fast, and shut the window before he could say more. A beat of silence. Then his voice again, low, almost casual. You close soon, right? I could wait. Walk you to your car. My throat went dry. That's not necessary. Just being nice, he said. I didn't respond. The headset went quiet, but I could still see the shape of his truck in the lot. I told Devin, the shift lead, a half-distracted college kid who smoked between orders. He grinned. Chivalry, Claire. Guy's probably just trying to help. Yeah, I said, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. By 9:15, Devin had clocked out early, mumbling something about a test in the morning. The store went still, just the hum of the freezer and the rain's steady hiss. I flipped the sign to closed, wiped counters until my arms ached, and pocketed my keys. When I stepped out the back door, the air hit like a wet towel. The bricks gleamed with puddles and the streetlights flickered in and out. I walked fast, shoes sliding on the slick concrete. Then headlights flared. The brown pickup swung across the lot, blocking my car before I could even open the door. My stomach dropped. Come on, I whispered to myself. Not now. I scrambled into the driver's seat, shoved the key into the ignition. Rain hammered the windshield so hard it blurred everything into streaks of light. Then tap, tap, he was at my window, calm, dry under the storm like the rain didn't dare touch him. You didn't say goodbye, he said softly. I couldn't look at him. My hand slipped on the gear shift as I slammed the car into reverse. The tires spun in the mud, squealing, the sound raw against the night. He hit the glass once, hard. That was enough. I floored it, shot backward across the lot, over the curb and out onto the main road. My heart felt like a trapped bird. I didn't drive home, I couldn't. Every shadow looked like his truck. I ended up at a 24-hour Walgreens. I parked under the bright pharmacy sign and sat there, trembling so hard my water cup shook in the holder. I didn't know who to call, no family, no friends left who'd believe this kind of fear without proof. So I called the domestic violence hotline. I told them it wasn't a boyfriend. Not exactly, just someone who saw me. Too much. The woman on the line said, "It's still enough. You still matter." For the first time in months, I believed someone. 3 days later, I filed a report. Gave them everything I remembered. The missing license plate, the brown truck, his voice. The officer nodded, polite but distant, as if the story were something happening to someone on TV. That was fine. I didn't need him to feel it. I just needed it written down somewhere real. Within a week, I transferred to another Burger King across town. New route, new schedule. I parked closer to the door, kept a retractable pepper spray clipped to my keys. I stopped driving with my windows down. I checked my mirrors compulsively, rear view, side again and again, just to make sure the road behind me stayed empty. It never really did. On my first shift at the new Burger King, I wiped down my station until it gleamed, pretending that the smell of sanitizer could wash the fear out of me. The place was nicer, brighter floors, a working ice machine, a dining room that actually filled with families instead of silence. I told myself this was a reset, a clean slate. I smiled when I had to, kept quiet when I didn't, and made sure to keep my back to the window. For a few weeks, nothing strange happened. No lingering customers, no headlights waiting in the dark. My body began to loosen its constant grip on fear. Then, one humid Thursday, almost a month after the transfer, I clocked out early. I grabbed a coffee to go, the cup warm against my palms, and felt, just for a moment, like maybe I was healing. I pulled onto the main road, windows cracked to let in the sound of crickets and distant thunder. That's when I saw it. The brown pickup. It idled at the stoplight up ahead, its taillights glowing red in the wet air. My breath hitched. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I waited for the light to change. When it turned green, the truck didn't move. I could see the faint silhouette of someone behind the glass, still watching. I turned down a side street. My chest felt like it was shrinking. I checked the visor mirror. He turned too. I made another turn, then another. Finally, I pulled into the parking lot of a closed pawn shop, killed the engine, and sat there for 20 minutes staring at the empty road. My coffee had gone cold. At 1 a.m, I convinced myself I was overreacting and drove home in circles, changing lanes for no reason other than to make sure no headlights followed. I never called the police again. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing things. Local posts online, whispers in the break room, reports of a man in a brown truck loitering near fast food drive-thrus after closing. McDonald's, Taco Bell, IHOP, always late, always alone. The license plate never matched the same state twice. No arrests. No charges. That summer, police issued a vague caution. Stay alert after hours. Don't walk alone to your vehicle. No photo. No description. Just a black and white flyer taped to a bulletin board. It didn't feel like enough. One night, I found a flyer tucked under my windshield wiper. A printout of a pickup truck. The word "lookout" bold and desperate across the page. No phone number. No signature. A new hire, a girl barely out of high school, asked me one night if I was okay. I told her I was fine, that she should focus on her drive-through training. But later that night, my phone buzzed. Her voice was shaking. "That guy, he followed me last night," she said. "Pulled up behind me in the Taco Bell lot." I thought I was imagining it. Then he rolled down his window and said, "I didn't want to hear it." She whispered. He said, "You didn't say bye." The line went dead. I sat in my car, shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to scream, but there was no sound left in me. I just pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and tried to breathe through the panic clawing at my ribs. I kept working nights. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I didn't have a choice. Rent didn't care about fear. I carried pepper spray everywhere. I memorized his shape, the curve of his shoulders, the way he looked harmless until he wasn't. My routines hardened into rituals. I carried a flashlight to my car if it was past midnight. I scanned every lot twice before locking up. I parked under streetlights, always facing the exit. Fear became second nature. Then one heavy July evening, I dropped off a box of old clothes at a friend's place across town. It was already dark when I walked back to my car. That's when I saw it, 2 cars over. The brown pickup. The engine was running. A man sat slumped inside, his face shadowed, the dashboard glowing faintly. My blood turned cold. I stepped backward, barely breathing, until I was under my friend's porch light again. I called the hotline first. They recognized my voice. Then I called 911, whispering the make, the color, the partial plate. I sent screenshots I'd taken weeks before when I swore I saw him parked outside my store. The sirens arrived within minutes. Blue lights washed over the street. But when the officers approached the truck, it was empty. No driver. No ID, no plate. He must have left before we got here, one officer said, shining his flashlight into the cab. The truck door swung open in the wind. Empty. I wanted to believe them when they said it was over. Autumn came, and with it, the illusion of peace. I hit 2 years at Burger King. I moved into my own 1-bedroom apartment, a place with real locks, working windows, and a doorbell that buzzed instead of rattled. The smallest things felt like armor. One night, as I was getting ready for my closing shift, a car pulled into the lot. My heart stuttered. I froze at the window. The headlights cut out. A figure stepped out, a man in a hooded jacket. I told myself it wasn't him. It couldn't be. Still, I waited. I watched. Then I forced myself to move, grabbed my bag, walked through the lobby, and clocked out like everything was fine. The rain started again, soft against the roof. I crossed the lot, keys in hand, pepper spray ready. When I reached my car, I turned the key and locked the doors instantly. My rearview mirror showed nothing but the dim orange glow of the streetlight. No one there. My breath trembled out of me. I drove away without looking back. I never saw the brown pickup again. But fear doesn't need proof to be real. It learns your heartbeat, your habits. It sits quietly in the passenger seat waiting for you to forget it exists. If something feels wrong, act on it. Don't wait for it to prove itself dangerous. Instinct is the body's first alarm. And if you ever start to wonder whether it matters, whether you'd be overreacting, remember this. You are worth more than the comfort of pretending you're safe. I never planned to stay in fast food. It was supposed to be a stopgap, a few months to help Mom after her surgery went bad. The plan was clear enough. Mornings at Burger King, pay the hospital bills, save up, go back to community college in the fall. Simple math, but life doesn't care about simple plans. By the second month, the early shifts stopped feeling temporary. The alarm at 4:30 a.m. became a law of gravity. My car keys rattled against the dashboard like the sound of a life I hadn't chosen. The restaurant always smelled like burnt oil and something faintly sour, like sweat and despair. It clung to my clothes, to my hair, to the skin under my nails. I told myself it was fine. I was the dependable one. Quiet, efficient, never called in sick. I thought staying unnoticed meant staying safe. Then Jean arrived. She came in one Tuesday morning through the back door, the sky still gray, rain sliding down the aluminum siding. She looked too polished for this place. Pressed black pants, blazer crisp enough to cut air. I heard the click of her heels before I saw her. Then the sharp clap of a clipboard hitting the counter. No greeting, no introduction. Just eyes, flat, appraising like she was already disappointed. By the next morning, her rules were taped to the break room wall. 13-second greeting rule. No leaning, no phones. 15-minute breaks. No exceptions. She told me once in that soft, almost intimate voice, "You'll run both front and drive-through. I'll watch." The words stayed with me longer than they should have. It didn't take long for the place to unravel. People started snapping at each other. Orders backed up, tempers flared. One of the teens, Jenna, burst into tears after Jean made her remake a Whopper 4 times because the lettuce wasn't symmetrical. No one laughed. Jean didn't yell, that was the worst part. She'd just stand there, eyes narrowed, smiling faintly like she was studying a lab rat that had disappointed her. Then she started calling me out. "Be like Marcus," she told the crew one afternoon, right in front of everyone. Her voice was honeyed, but her eyes were daggers. It didn't sound like praise. It sounded like a warning. Be quiet. Be perfect. Don't slip. And God, I was slipping. One morning, half the team called out. The fryers hissed, the drive-through light blinked nonstop, and Jean stationed herself behind me like a shadow glued to my spine. I was juggling the register, headset, and window all at once. "Good morning. Welcome to Burger King," I muttered for the 100th time. Fake smile plastered on my face, hands trembling from caffeine and exhaustion. Orders came faster than I could breathe. Mobile pickups, breakfast combos, a busload of tourists blasting country music so loud it rattled the window glass. Jean's perfume hovered over me, lilac and disinfectant, suffocating. At 8:02, a woman asked for a biscuit breakfast with no egg. Simple enough. I pressed no egg on the screen and moved on. 10 seconds later, Jean slammed her clipboard onto the counter. "Start over," she said flatly. I blinked. "What?" She said no egg. I typed no egg. Her voice cut me off, quiet but sharp. "Do it again." The restaurant went still. Even the fryers seemed to pause. The woman at the window looked away. My face burned as I remade the order, my hands clumsy. Jean handed me the wrapped biscuit like it was evidence. Then she leaned in so close I could feel her breath. "If you mess up another one," she whispered, "I'll write you up for theft of time." The words didn't make sense at first. Theft of time, like existing too slowly, was stealing. My heart jackhammered in my chest. I wanted to walk out right then, throw the headset into the fryer, but I didn't. I smiled. I greeted, I begged. I repeated. By 1:40 p.m., my legs were shaking. I clocked out, stumbled into the back lot, and collapsed against the curb near the dumpsters. The asphalt was hot, the air thick with rot and fryer grease. I pressed my hands to my face and felt sweat drip down my neck like tears. Lyle, a kid from the high school down the street, sat beside me. He looked hollow, pale under the neon Burger King visor. "She made me clock out and stay," he muttered, voice breaking. "Said if I didn't, I'd lose hours next week. They won't believe me if I say anything." I looked at him, really looked, and something in me shifted. It wasn't just exhaustion anymore. It wasn't fear. It was a clean, burning clarity. This wasn't just unfair. It was wrong. The next day I called corporate, anonymous. My voice trembled, but I told them everything. Every whispered threat, every rule, every hour she'd stolen from us. And when I hung up, the silence felt different. Not like defeat, but the kind that comes right before a storm. I answered their questions carefully, every word measured. My voice felt foreign on the phone, too calm for what I'd lived through. I told them about the missing files, the unrecorded hours, the invisible rules Jean enforced that didn't exist on paper. I described the pressure, how she'd linger behind you until your breathing changed, how you'd start rushing your own thoughts just to keep her satisfied. The investigator on the other end said all the right things. "We'll look into it. We take these reports seriously." I wanted to believe them. Days passed. Nothing changed. John stayed. Her rules stayed. The same laminated sheet with red bullet points was still taped above the sink, curling at the edges like a scab that wouldn't heal. Her clipboard still hovered near the counter. Her perfume still hung in the break room, faint lilac over bleach. I tried to shake it off, but it followed me home. I started dreaming of the drive-through window morphing into a question mark, the intercom buzzing like it was whispering something I couldn't quite hear. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. trembling, microwave humming in the background as I counted the seconds before the ramen beeped. 15. Always 15. Jean's number. I still worked. I couldn't afford not to. Mom's prescriptions, rent, the car, the insurance, everything stacked up like receipts for a life I wasn't sure belonged to me. I called my old college advisor, asked if there was any way to re-enroll. "Fill out a mid-semester return form," she said kindly. "If you need help, I'm here." That night, I spread my budget sheets across our tiny living room floor. The numbers blurred together. Mom leaned out from her recliner, pale but smiling. "I'm feeling better, sweetheart," she said softly. "Don't worry so much." I smiled back, nodded, tucked the papers away like a secret wound. 2 more weeks went by. Then one morning, Jean was gone. I showed up for my 6 a.m. shift, uniform crisp but heart heavy. The assistant manager, Tyler, was already there, sipping burnt coffee, eyes puffy from lack of sleep. "She didn't finish her transfer paperwork," he said flatly. Wasn't approved. Left last night, and that was it. No notice, no meeting, no closure. I walked down the narrow hallway to her office. The door stood open. The desk was bare. No computer, no folders, no trace of her handwriting. The air smelled oddly fresh, like new paint in absence. Even the framed policy signs were gone, though their outlines remained. Rectangles of cleaner paint, pale ghosts on the wall. It was like she'd never been real. I stood there a long time, staring at the faint tape residue on the wall. My reflection shimmered in the dark monitor screen. For the first time, the silence felt almost holy. Later, I went out back and sat on the curb where I used to collapse after long shifts. Morning light spilled across the cracked asphalt. For the first time in months, I exhaled without guilt. Part of me felt relieved, like someone had lifted a hand off my throat. But another part froze because I realized something worse. I'd been haunted by a woman who might never have truly existed. She'd become more than a manager. She'd been a system, a shape built out of fear and control. And I'd lived inside it so long I'd almost forgotten what normal felt like. The next day, I worked the morning rush without her shadow. I caught myself checking over my shoulder once or twice, expecting that faint lilac scent, that clipboard click. Nothing came. Lyle stopped by during his break from school. He smiled more easily now, eyes brighter. "She's really gone?" "Yeah," I said, watching sunlight spill through the drive-through window. "She's gone." He nodded. "Feels weird." "Yeah," I said again, "but good weird." Now I split my time between morning classes and my new barista job. The work is slower, honest. When I clock out, I walk into sunlight instead of grease-thick air. I come home tired, but not empty. Lyle says he's saving up for college, too. Some of the old crew message me sometimes telling me things are calmer. The new manager actually smiles, real smiles. Not the kind you time with a stopwatch. But some nights when I'm closing the cafe and the headset buzzes after midnight, I still hear it. That faint static, a low breath through broken wire. I always stop, listen, hold my breath. No voice answers. Just that hollow pause like someone waiting for me to respond. I tell myself Jean isn't coming back. I believe it most days, but I carry her lesson with me. The way trauma sometimes disguises itself as wisdom. Not the lessons she tried to teach about time or efficiency, but the one I learned in spite of her. That silence is its own kind of cruelty. That authority built on fear rots from the inside. That speaking up, even trembling, even anonymously, Bami, can shift something in the dark. Because sometimes the real horror isn't the cruelty itself. It's how normal it starts to feel. And the real heroes? They're not the ones who win. They're the ones who interrupt the silence before someone else breaks. I picked up the phone first thing this morning and stared at the screen before answering. DoorDash had pinged me. 2 Whopper meals and an Oreo shake from the Burger King I'd just clocked out of. My shift had ended maybe 5 minutes ago. My feet ached. The uniform clung to my skin, and the smell of fryer grease still followed me like smoke. But I needed the extra cash. Rent was late again. It was just 10 minutes away. I could do one more. I sighed, grabbed my keys, and tapped accept. The streets were half asleep as I drove. Empty intersections, closed-up storefronts, sodium lights humming above cracked asphalt. The GPS led me through an industrial stretch I'd never noticed before. Storage tanks, chain-link fences, and old factories sagging under the weight of fog. My headlights caught the glint of wet gravel as the route ended at a duplex that looked forgotten. Paint peeling, weeds choking the walkway, no porch light. Just the moon hanging above like it was keeping its distance. I idled for a second, reading the note taped crooked to the mailbox. Back entrance. Side gate knocked twice. Something about the handwriting, or sharp, tight loops like it was written in a rush, made my stomach twist. Still, I needed the payout. I grabbed the food tray and followed the narrow, overgrown path to the back. The air smelled like rust and wet concrete. A door stood cracked open, the edge scraping against the floor when the wind pushed it. I hesitated. I could just drop the bag and leave, but that note felt urgent, desperate even. So I knocked twice. Almost immediately, a muffled argument broke out inside. Shouting, a crash, the dull thud of a door slamming. Then silence. My chest tightened. I was about to turn around when the door opened. A bald man stood there, barefoot and sweating. His face looked puffy, like he hadn't slept or had been crying and or both. He blinked too much. "Thanks," he muttered, his voice low and flat. "Sorry about the noise. She gets emotional." He took the tray from my hands. His fingers trembled slightly, the sweat catching the porch light. "Want some water?" he asked. I shook my head quickly. "No, I'm good. Got more deliveries." He gestured for me to come in, but something in me froze. The smell, not just the mildew, but something metallic underneath. Then she appeared. A woman stepped into view from behind him, her hair matted against one side of her face. Her eye was swollen, lips split open. She didn't say a word, just stared at me, shaking her head ever so slightly. "Are you okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. He stiffened. "She's fine," he said sharply, but she whispered, barely audible, "Please don't leave." My pulse spiked. I took a step back, my throat dry. I'll call someone," I managed. The door slammed. A deadbolt clicked. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I sprinted to my car, locked the doors, and dialed 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher's calm voice barely cut through the ringing in my ears. I told them what I saw. The fight. The woman. The door. I stayed on the line, engine idling, headlights aimed at the house. The fog thickened around the driveway. For a few long minutes, nothing happened. Then police lights flashed blue and red against the siding. Officers moved fast, shouting commands, pushing through the front door. Moments later, she came out. The same woman. She was holding 2 black garbage bags, trembling so hard I thought she'd collapse. Her arms were covered in bruises that looked old and new at once. She clutched the Oreo shake I'd brought her, still cold, like it was the only solid thing in the world. Something in my chest cracked open. I couldn't breathe right. When the officers loaded her into the ambulance, she didn't look at me. Just held that cup tight against her chest as if it meant safety. The smell of oil and fear hung heavy in the night air, mixing with the faint sweetness of fast food. I gave my statement as best I could. "I just delivered food." I heard shouting. My voice cracked halfway through. The officer nodded, eyes tired but kind. "You did good, son," he said quietly. By the time I got back to the Burger King parking lot, the adrenaline had drained out of me. I sat there for a long while, staring at the empty passenger seat. The neon from the sign flickered across the dashboard. It hit me then. How close I'd come to walking away. How easy it would have been to ignore the order, pretend it wasn't my problem. But some instinct, call it guilt, call it decency, made me stay. And now I couldn't stop replaying her eyes in my head. The way they begged without a sound. My phone buzzed. A notification from DoorDash delivery canceled. Address not found. I stared at the screen. There was no record of the order. No delivery location. No payout. When I called support, the woman on the line sounded confused. "That's strange," she said. "There's no order from that restaurant in your history." It must have been a glitch. I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, feeling something cold crawl up my spine. Could an abuser have used the app, or something like it, to lure help? Or was it something else entirely? Someone who enjoyed seeing who would show up? I dropped my forehead against the steering wheel and let the tears come. I didn't even know who I was crying for. Her, or the version of me who almost didn't knock. The next morning I called out sick. My manager picked up, voice groggy. "What happened?" he asked. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I told him I felt sick. He studied me for a moment, his eyes searching, then nodded. "Take the day," he said. "Kids need rest sometimes." His voice was gentle, but I could tell he knew something was off. When I came back for my next shift, he looked at me differently, like he was trying to read something written behind my eyes. I refused all DoorDash runs from that area, the industrial zone near Florin Road. He didn't question it, just gave a quiet nod like he already understood. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, standing in the half-light, one eye swollen shut, whispering, "Please don't leave." I woke up tangled in my sheets, sweat slicked down my spine, lungs tight like I'd been running. At work, I went quiet. I moved slower, spoke less. Between fryers and drive-through orders, I caught myself staring at the walls, hearing echoes that weren't there. A faint knock, 2 sharp raps, the click of a deadbolt my coworkers noticed. "You good, man?" One asked, handing me a soda. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. But the truth was I couldn't stop replaying it. The smell of mildew and fear, the woman's trembling hands, the sound of that lock sliding shut. I kept thinking how close I'd stood to something terrible, how easily I could have disappeared too. Driving at night became its own ritual of paranoia. I checked my rearview mirror twice at every stop, locked the doors even at red lights. Every sound outside, a footstep, a cough, the hum of another car, felt like a warning. At home, I flinched whenever someone knocked. Once, I swear I heard it, 2 gentle taps, exactly like that night. I froze on my couch staring at the door, my pulse hammering in my throat. When I finally moved to check, no one was there. 2 weeks later, I signed up for college. It wasn't some grand decision, just an impulse, like I needed to move forward before the memory swallowed me whole. I spent the morning filling out forms and picking classes. The next day, I turned in my Burger King uniform. That job had kept me alive when I needed it, but it had also left me haunted. Every grease stain and paper receipt felt like a tether to that night. I needed something brighter. So I started working as a barista at a small coffee shop downtown. The pay wasn't much, but it was open, filled with people, warm lights, chatter, music. The hiss of milk steamers and clatter of mugs became therapy. I could hide in routine. The smell of espresso grounded me more than I realized. It reminded me that the world still held small, safe noises, the buzz of conversation, the hum of a blender, someone laughing over spilled sugar. But sometimes, when the cafe lights dimmed and I was the last one closing, I'd hear it again. The soft creak of floorboards in my apartment, the rustle of a trash bag outside. My breath would catch, heart stalling until silence returned. I still checked the DoorDash app sometimes. Not to drive, just to look. The canceled order never appeared again. No record, no name, no address. It was like it had been erased, or never existed at all. I thought about what might have happened if I hadn't gone. Maybe that woman would still be trapped there. Maybe no one would have found her until it was too late. And maybe, just maybe, I would have been the one in need of saving. I used to think delivering food was just a job, easy, forgettable. But that night I realized I hadn't just delivered dinner, I'd delivered someone a chance. The memory still scratches at me, like an old wound that never fully closes. I've passed every college exam since, logged over 100 hours behind the espresso bar, started sleeping through most nights. But sometimes, when I drive past Florin Road and catch a glimpse of the Burger King sign glowing in the dark, my pulse quickens. Not from fear, from something quieter. Respect fear keeps you running. Respect keeps you alive. I'm still cautious. My car doors stay locked. I don't take shortcuts through dark streets. I call the landlord if a bulb burns out in the hallway. I listen to voices, to instincts, to that small voice inside that whispers don't. Because every closed door is a choice. Every order, a risk, and every knock, even the softest one, deserves a moment of silence before you decide to open it. When something feels wrong, it usually is. But kindness, even cautious kindness, can still matter. That night taught me the difference between fear and wisdom. Fear makes you freeze. Wisdom teaches you when to stay and when to walk away. You never really know how much a person can fall apart until you're the one trying to piece yourself back together from nothing. For me, it didn't happen all at once. It was a slow unraveling. A toxic engagement I couldn't fix, a lease I couldn't afford. Nights spent curled up in the back seat of my car, breath fogging the windows, clutching a duffel bag full of clothes and a phone charger that only worked if I bent it at the perfect angle. That's what Pittsburgh became to me in the end. A graveyard of half-finished plans and words I wished I could take back. So I left, packed the little I had and drove west until the gas gauge kissed empty, and the streetlights looked strange enough that I could pretend I was someone else. Cincinnati wasn't paradise, but it had a heartbeat. I found work at a Burger King on Main Street night shift, smack in the middle of downtown. It wasn't glamorous. It barely felt safe, but it was steady. Enough to cover rent for a one-bedroom in Over the Rhine where the floors creaked and the ceiling leaked brown water stains like ghosts of old storms. It was the kind of apartment that didn't care who you were as long as you had cash. I kept to myself. Didn't talk much to the other employees. Didn't want to. They thought I was quiet. The truth was, I just didn't have much left to give. I clocked in, did my job, and left. No attachments. No stories. Then came Victor. He started showing up in late March, always alone, always close to closing time. There was something off about him. Not dangerous exactly, just misplaced. He wore button-down shirts, a long charcoal coat, and shoes that were too clean for the sticky floor he walked on. He looked like someone who should have been sipping espresso in a glass office, not Sprite under flickering fluorescent lights at 3 in the morning. The first time he talked to me, I had just kicked out a drunk guy who was screaming about cold fries. I'd kept my voice calm, firm. No scene, no yelling, just enough authority to make him leave. When the door shut, Victor stepped up to the counter and said, "You're good at calming people down." That's rare. I remember blinking at him, unsure how to respond. "Thanks," I muttered. Gave a tired half smile. That was all. But somehow the moment stuck. He came back. Not every night, but often enough, 2, maybe 3 times a week. Always quiet, always watching. He'd sit in the corner, scrolling on his phone, sometimes writing in a small black notebook. I tried not to notice, but his eyes always found me. He didn't look at the others, just me. When he did talk, his compliments came out too measured, too studied. "You've got a quiet strength," he'd say one night. "I like how you move, deliberate, not like the others." At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe I reminded him of someone. God knows I was lonely too, but there was something about the way he said those things, like he'd been rehearsing them. Then one night, around 2:30 in the morning, he walked through the back door. No buzzer, no knock, just stepped inside like he belonged there. "You left it open," he said, like we were roommates. Thought I'd help close up. I froze. My skin prickled, the air turning thin in my chest. "You can't be back here," I managed. He lifted his hands, smiling that calm, practiced smile. "Relax, I used to work jobs like this too. I know how it feels. Invisible until someone needs you." Then he placed something on the prep table, a candy bar neatly wrapped. "For you," he said softly. No tricks. I didn't touch it, just stared. After that night, I started checking every lock twice, sometimes 3 times. Changed my walking route home. Avoided the bus. Tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. It didn't work. A week later, I found a note taped to my locker. "You're not alone. I see you. Nobody saw who left it." The break room cameras had been dead for months, water damaged after a leak we never fixed. When I showed the note to Heather, my manager, she frowned and said, "I'll keep an eye out. Maybe it's that guy." But she was always too busy covering shifts or dealing with supply issues to actually do anything. Between the turnover and the chaos, no one cared about a maybe stalker with 2 clean shoes and a habit of leaving candy bars. That Friday, I was scheduled for a solo shift, midnight to 3 a.m. Heather called out sick, and our last cook had quit 3 days earlier. The store was technically closed, but I still had closing duties: trash, floors, fryers. The building felt hollow with the lobby lights off. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. At 12:40, the drive-through headset crackled. 2 cheeseburgers, no pickle. Just like you like them. My heart stopped. I hadn't told anyone how I liked my food. Not in weeks. Not to a single soul. I froze, listening. Nothing but static crackled in my headset now. I pulled it off slowly, every nerve screaming, and edged toward the front window. The parking lot outside was empty. No car, no movement. Just that one busted street lamp flickering like it couldn't decide whether to die or keep fighting. The silence pressed down on me. Then click. The staff bathroom door on the far side of the kitchen creaked open. My stomach dropped. I hadn't touched that door all night. I gripped the mop handle tighter and inched forward, heart pounding so hard it made my ribs ache. Then he stepped out. Victor. He looked wrong, his face slick with sweat, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes too bright under the kitchen's buzzing light, and he was smiling like this was a friendly surprise. "I missed our talks," he said casually, voice calm, almost gentle. I didn't answer. Just backed toward the supply closet, keeping the mop between us. "You left the back open again," he went on, tilting his head, that faint note of disappointment in his tone. "Maybe on purpose. Maybe you wanted me to come back." Something inside me snapped. I lunged, shoving the mop at his chest, and bolted. My shoes slipped on the greasy tile, but I didn't stop until I slammed the office door shut and locked it. My hands shook as I dialed 911. 15 minutes. That's how long it took them to arrive. 15 minutes of sitting there, breath ragged, eyes on the handle, waiting for it to turn. When the cops finally showed, Victor was gone. No sign of forced entry, no fingerprints. But he'd left something, tacked to the bathroom wall with a thumbtack. A laminated photo of me from high school, smiling in a yearbook I hadn't seen in years. How he got it, I still don't know. That night cracked something inside me. The next morning I quit. Heather didn't ask questions. She just pressed my last paycheck into my hand, eyes avoiding mine. "Good luck," she said softly. I moved out of my apartment within a week. Changed my number. Deleted everything, social media, old emails, the scraps of life I'd built. But sleep never came easy again. Eventually I found work at a 24-hour cafe on the other side of town. Smaller place, quieter, better lighting, more cameras. I kept a box cutter in my apron just in case. I started drinking black coffee by the pot, staying wired, alert. Sometimes I'd tell myself it was over, that Victor was gone. But the truth lived in the back of my skull like static. You don't come back from something like that untouched. Victor didn't want money, or even revenge. He wanted something I couldn't name, presence, to be seen, to belong somewhere, even if that meant worming his way into my fear. The worst part? He wanted me to know he saw me first. 6 months passed. I was starting to breathe again. Almost. Then, one night, 3:11 a.m., a man walked into the cafe. He ordered a black coffee. No cream, paid in cash, sat by the window, hands wrapped around the cup like it was the only warm thing in the world. He didn't blink once. I rang him up, slid the receipt across the counter, and tried not to stare. When I picked it back up later, the paper was still warm. Under the tip line, 5 words were written in neat, deliberate handwriting. "Still see you." Still watching. I didn't scream, didn't call the cops. I just stood there, eyes fixed on the man in the window seat, trying to decide if it was him, or just my fear giving someone else his face. He wore a gray hoodie this time, no coat. Thinner, almost sick-looking, but the way he held that cup with both hands like before froze me. I walked to the break room, typed out a quick text to my manager. "Family emergency. Have to go." Then I left out the back door, crossed the street, and caught the next bus out of the city. I didn't go home that night. I spent the next week crashing on a coworker's couch, flinching at every sound, every passing car outside their window. When I finally went back to my apartment, I didn't turn the lights on. I just sat in the dark, waiting to see if he'd knock. You think when someone disappears, it's over. But the worst ones, they don't want to hurt you once. They want to live inside your life. They want to shape your decisions, your silences. I don't know how he found me again. Burner phones leave no trail. Maybe he never left. Maybe he watches other people too, people like me. Or maybe I've been carrying his ghost since Pittsburgh, dragging it across every new city like a shadow I can't shake. I moved again. South this time, smaller city, daylight shifts only. No social media, no night work, no trace. Now I open a hardware store at dawn. The pay's lousy, but it's quiet, predictable. My studio apartment sits above a florist, smells like lilies all the time. Peaceful, almost too peaceful. But sometimes I still wake up at exactly 3:11 a.m. My body just knows. Like it's bracing. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it because people think monsters look like monsters. They don't. They look like calm men in clean coats. They smile. They compliment your strengths. They leave gifts you didn't ask for. And sometimes they already know where you'll be before you do. So I stay alert. I trust my gut now. I trust silence less. I check the locks 3 times, always 3. Not because I'm scared anymore, but because fear taught me what to notice. Not every threat announces itself. Sometimes the most dangerous people don't chase you. They wait, they watch, and they wear the face of someone who just wants to help. I used to think escape meant freedom. When I left Derek, I imagined the edges of Spokane would feel like safety, like air I could finally breathe. The cheap apartment, the hiss of fryers at Burger King, the rhythm of drive-through orders. I told myself those sounds would drown out the memories. But they didn't. They just became part of the noise. Fries, faded linoleum, and a cycle I swore I'd escaped. Mason was 6. Too smart, too kind. My whole world. I picked him up from school, helped with homework after my shift, tucked him in before heading back to scrub dishes until midnight. I told myself exhaustion was progress. That silence was healing. Then Ken moved in next door. Retired mechanic, always with a soda can in hand. Porch light glowing long after the complex went dark. Polite, maybe too polite. Rough day? He'd ask when I passed with groceries. Need a hand? He'd hold the door open, smile like he knew me. I'd smile back. Thanks, Ken. I let my guard down because I wanted to believe we were safe. That illusion cracked the day Mason mentioned candy. Mr. Ken gave me some after school, he said, swinging his legs at the table. My stomach tightened. When was this? I asked. After lunch, he shrugged. He was waiting. I hadn't left work early. He wasn't supposed to see Mason at all. That night, I knocked on Ken's door. He mentioned you gave him candy, I said, trying to sound casual. Ken chuckled. Oh, that. Just a little treat for being such a big boy. His tone was too easy. I forced a smile, said, let's keep things like that to me, okay? And walked away. After that, I shut the curtains before sunset. Double-checked the locks. Our routine tightened to a noose, homework, dinner, bed, repeat. But safety still slipped through cracks I couldn't see. Then Derek called. I was wiping tables in the lobby when his voice bled through my phone. Too calm, too familiar. I miss my son, he said. You're keeping him from me, Lacey. You're toxic. I froze, the mop handle trembling in my hand. Don't call again, I said, and blocked him. Hours later, the school called. Mason hadn't shown up at pickup. He was released to someone on your contact list, the secretary said. Ken, he had your signature. My body went cold. That's not possible, I said. He forged it. The police took their time, their tone skeptical. Are you sure Derek didn't pick him up? One asked. Could this be a misunderstanding? I ran to Ken's door, pounded until my fist throbbed. No answer. A neighbor brought a ladder so I could look through the blinds, nothing but drawn curtains. When the cops finally forced entry, I pushed past them. Mason's school bag lay in the hallway. No Mason, no Ken, just silence thick enough to choke on. I called everyone I could think of. Co-workers, babysitters, old friends. Each unanswered ring tightened something inside me until I could barely breathe. When the Amber Alert went out that night, the street filled with reporters and flashing lights. I sat on the balcony wrapped in Mason's jacket staring into the glow. That's when my phone rang. Blocked number. Derek's voice again, low, steady, almost proud. Told you I'd get him back, he said. You can't raise a boy on fries and broken promises. Then the line went dead. The next 24 hours blurred into panic. I scrubbed the counters, paced the floors, called dispatch for updates. When they finally found Mason, it was near sunset the next day, at a rundown highway motel. He was shivering, dirt streaked across his face. He ran into my arms, sobbing. Mom, he whispered, I didn't have to come back unless... He didn't finish. The officer beside me said the motel clerk recognized Derek from the Amber Alert. Ken had helped him. They'd planned it together. Ken was arrested. Derek was found 2 states away and taken into custody. But even with Mason home, sleep wouldn't come. He'd wake crying, saying the shadows in his room whispered stories. Why do monsters live next door? He asked once. I didn't have an answer. I just held him tighter and told him we'd keep moving until monsters couldn't find us anymore. The next day, I quit Burger King. The smell of oil and sweat made me sick. I took a job at the public library as a night security guard. Quiet halls, locked doors, cameras I could trust. I told myself I'd watch every exit, every face. We moved again, farther from Spokane, closer to quiet. Mason laughs more now. I sleep with the light on. I bought blackout curtains. But sometimes in that half-sleep I hear a knock that sounds too deliberate. A voice, low and careful, saying my name like a warning. I tell friends I've learned to trust again. I tell Mason we're safe. But I know better. Some lessons don't end with arrests or relocations. Some scars live under your skin, pulsing with memory. Monsters don't always hide under beds. Sometimes they stand on porches, smile politely, and ask about your kid's day. They live behind thin walls, wear friendly faces, and speak softly enough to sound safe. Real safety isn't found in walls or routines. It's in instincts. In knowing when to listen to the small voice inside you, screaming that something's wrong. Because sometimes love means staying scared, staying alert, and never forgetting what danger looks like when it smiles. I've spent my whole life being two people, the one everyone overlooks and the one holding everything together. My name's Lacey. I'm 41, single, living in a rundown duplex in South Memphis with my younger brother, who has cerebral palsy and seizures. Mama used to say I was born responsible. Maybe that's true. I've been keeping things from breaking since before I could drive. I work 2 jobs, days at Burger King on 3rd Street, nights cleaning offices downtown. Been patching life together with duct tape and prayer for as long as I can remember. This is the story of the summer it all came undone, and the strange kind of peace that followed. The air conditioner at the 3rd Street Burger King had been broken off and on since May. By late June, the place felt like a furnace. The smell of grease clung to you, your skin, your clothes, even your breath after brushing your teeth. It got into your bones, and no matter how much soap you used, it never really left. The managers liked to say the job was easy, but only if you were 19, pretty, and fine with customers flirting just to get extra napkins. Me, I just worked. Cheryl, my manager, never hid who she favored. I wasn't one of them, too quiet, too slow, too tired. I stayed late to clean the fryer after everyone clocked out, hauled boxes in 90-degree heat because no one else would, and covered every shift no one wanted. On the schedule, I was reliable. In real life, that meant invisible. Then came the corporate audit. Cheryl panicked. She started repainting walls, forging customer surveys, and cutting hours for anyone over 30. The young, camera-ready girls got the best shifts, the ones Cheryl could flirt and gossip with. I begged her not to cut mine. My brother's meds are out, I said. Rent's due in 2 weeks. She smiled, sharp, mean. You want to keep your hours? She asked. Try smiling more when customers complain. Maybe lose that limp while you're at it. You look slow on camera. I just nodded. My knee had been bad for years, a fall while scrubbing stairs without a railing. That limp wasn't going anywhere, and no amount of smiling could hide it. The next morning, Travis showed up, a fresh-faced corporate trainee straight out of business school. Neat haircut, pressed khakis that had never met fryer grease. Here to observe operations, he said with a grin and a clipboard. He shadowed me all day, watched how I swept, how I wiped counters, how I filled the drink machine. Your name tag's crooked, he said. Apron's off-brand standard. He even asked why I sighed after every mop run. It was 100 degrees in the kitchen. The mop water looked like tar. I hadn't slept in 2 days. Still, I said, just tired. Long week. During the lunch rush, I was juggling 3 orders, sweat dripping down my spine, when I heard him tell Cheryl, loud enough for everyone, "We need someone younger up front. Fast food's visual now." That sentence hit harder than I expected. I didn't say a word. I just finished my shift, wiped down the counters, and sat in the stockroom afterward, trembling, not from anger, but from exhaustion that went all the way to my bones. The next morning, while bagging breakfast orders, I missed 6 calls. My brother had a seizure. By the time I got home, the ambulance was gone. "He's stable," the neighbor said. Scared, but stable. I sat by his bed for 2 hours, holding his hand while he slept, whispering that I'd be right back. Then I went to work. I was late. Cheryl didn't ask why. She just handed me a folded paper. 3 strikes, she said flatly. You're done. I didn't argue. Didn't beg. Just handed over my visor and walked out into the heat. The sun bounced off the concrete, glaring hard enough to blind you. That's when I saw it. The white sedan Travis drove, idling in the disabled spot. Engine running. Windows sealed. I pictured him inside sipping iced coffee, typing performance notes about Cheryl's leadership, while the rest of us melted in grease and sweat. Something in me snapped. Not anger, just finality. I crossed the street to the payday loan office. The woman behind the glass had bubblegum pink nails and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How much you got left?" she asked. 83, I said. She nodded, printed a check, and slid it under the glass. "You want to roll it forward?" "No," I said. "I'm done." And I meant it. I never went back to Burger King, never texted, never explained. I disappeared like grease down a drain. A week later, I heard Cheryl had been demoted. Corporate found her doctored time cards and fake surveys. One of the cashiers, barely 19, filed a report saying Travis made inappropriate remarks during training. He got reassigned quietly because corporate never admits its messes out loud. A friend from work called me after. "Things are better now," she said. "You should come back." I thanked her, but no. I'd already found something else. Nothing glamorous, just cleaning the bathrooms at the city bus station 3 nights a week. Cash pay, no boss breathing down my neck. I wore a gray janitor's jumpsuit and big headphones. Hummed while I worked. The sound of my own voice echoing in tile felt freer than anything had in years. A new Burger King cashier told someone later she saw me once at the station. Said I was cleaning the sinks, earbuds in, humming like I didn't have a care in the world. They asked if I looked sad, broken, tired. She looked peaceful, the girl said, like someone who finally stopped pretending. And she was right. I don't walk with pride exactly, but I walk lighter now. The limp's still there, but I don't hide it. I take care of my brother. I pay bills on time. I scrub tiles and whistle, no one hovering or judging. There's a kind of strength in quiet work, in knowing your worth even when no one claps for you. The world doesn't hand out applause for surviving, but sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave, not with a bang, but with your head high and your heart still intact. Don't wait for someone to make things better. Sometimes you just have to walk away, softly, steadily, until the noise fades and the air finally feels clean. People don't talk about what happens after you screw up. Not the headline stuff, the DUIs, the mugshots, but the slow bleed that follows. The tiny missteps that come when you're trying to make things right, but everyone's already decided you're the kind of man who doesn't get second chances. I was 27 with a record that didn't fit who I was anymore. 1 DUI, 1 bar fight, 6 months probation. Enough to erase every clean year, every steady job, every reference letter that no one ever bothered to read. My mom got locked up for possession last spring, so it was just me and Jamie after that. My little brother deserved better than the hand we'd been dealt, so I did the only thing left. I worked. Mopping tile floors at 6 in the morning wasn't the dream, but it was survival. The Burger King on Court Street in Peoria wasn't glamorous. The early crowd was mostly construction guys, hungover night shift zombies, and nurses grabbing a croissant before clocking in at St. Francis. But it was steady. And steady meant food on the table. On paper, I was the full-time team lead. In reality, that meant I kept the grill running, fixed whatever broke, and answered to a manager who didn't know the difference between the broiler and the fryer. Her name was Amanda. She talked like she was running a tech startup instead of a Burger King. I knew she only got the job because her cousin was tight with the district supervisor. Still, I showed up early, covered for kids who wanted prom weekends, picked up shifts when others forgot, and smiled through her fake praise. I didn't drink, didn't use, kept my PO off my back. Most importantly, I kept Jamie fed, dressed, and in school. For a while, that was enough. Then the fryer fire happened. It was right after the breakfast rush. I was adjusting the drive-through headset volume when someone yelled, "Smoke!" I turned and saw gray clouds curling from beneath the fryer, thick and oily like a fog machine from hell. "Kill the power!" I shouted. Tanya, our morning ace, shoved the trash bin aside while I yanked the extinguisher off the wall. 2 minutes later, it was over. No injuries. No damage beyond some blackened drywall and the smell of burned grease in our clothes. But when corporate came in, they didn't care about that. They looked at the walls, snapped a few pictures, and handed Amanda a negligence report. She signed it like she was approving a lunch order. "I filed a maintenance ticket last week," I said, holding up the paperwork. "That outlet's been sparking for days." She didn't even look at it. "You're still on probation," she said, sitting behind her desk like a judge. This isn't a good look. I wanted to argue, but my throat locked up. I needed the job more than my pride. So I nodded. "Won't happen again." That's where it started. The slow slide. 3 days later, a customer slipped in the lobby. A spilled soda by the drink station. I was on grill that morning. Hadn't even set foot near the lobby. But Amanda called me into the office anyway. "Write the incident report," she said without looking up from her clipboard. "Shouldn't the front of house handle that?" "It's just easier if it's your name," she said. Like that explained everything. "You've already got a file." That one stung. But I did it. No argument. I figured if I kept my head down long enough, it'd blow over. The universe doesn't keep score, but I kept trying to play fair anyway. Then came Deshaun. 17 maybe. Fast-talking, charming, loud. One of those kids who thought the world bent for his stories. He showed up late half the time, but always with a new excuse. My cousin's car broke down, or my sister needed help with her kid. He flirted with every girl on the front line, always leaning too close, whispering things that made them roll their eyes but never complain loud enough to reach Amanda. I tried to look out for him at first. God knows someone should have done that for me when I was 17. But by week 2, he was FaceTiming from behind the counter during a lunch rush, while Tanya tried to handle 6 orders alone. I pulled him into the walk-in cooler, the cold biting through my sleeves. "Look, man," I said, voice low. "You're making it harder for everyone. This ain't playtime. Show up, do the job, quit the clown routine." He popped his gum and grinned. "You mad 'cause you old?" I shook my head. "I'm mad 'cause I have to clean up after you. Don't make me your babysitter." He shrugged, half smiling, and walked off. The next morning, my phone was gone. I kept it in the office drawer, locked, same as always. Between my smoke break and lunch, it vanished. No broken lock, no sign of entry, just gone. Photos of Jamie's last birthday, my bank apps, my messages, all of it. I reported it to Amanda. She didn't even blink. "No proof," she said flatly. "Could have been anyone. I lock it every shift." "Then maybe you forgot." That was it. Conversation over. No camera check, no report filed. Just another quiet reminder that some people don't get the benefit of the doubt, no matter how clean they try to live. She shrugged, arms crossed like a wall between us. "You can't accuse someone without proof. I'm not HR." I stared at her, jaw tight. "I know who it was." "Then get evidence," she said, already turning away. Deshaun had been in and out of that office all day, laughing, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. But she was right, no proof. Just gut instinct and bad luck. Then, as if life wanted to stack it higher, Jamie got suspended that same week. He'd punched a kid for calling our mom a crackhead. The school called me during the lunch rush. I threw off my gloves and left mid-shift. When I came back the next morning, Amanda didn't even look up from the fryer log. "You're not reliable," she said. "I'm trying to help you, but you keep disappearing." Help. She said it like dropping bricks on my back counted as support. The final straw came on a Tuesday that smelled like wet pavement and fryer grease. The lunch rush had slowed, rain tapping against the drive-through window when Amanda's phone rang. She waved me over with a sour look. "Guy says you cussed him out in the drive-through," she said, holding out the phone. I blinked. "What guy?" "Didn't leave a name. Said you called him a dumbass through the headset." I almost laughed. "Come on, you really think I'd do that?" Her mouth thinned into a line. "You've been under a lot of stress lately. I get it." "Check the camera," I said, stepping closer. "You'll see it wasn't me." She shook her head. "The file corrupted during the last upload. It's not worth fighting over one complaint." My stomach went hollow. "So what, this is it?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Maybe this just isn't working out." It wasn't anger I felt. Not sadness either. Just exhaustion. The kind that seeps into your bones until even breathing feels like effort. "You're terminating me?" I asked, voice flat. She slid a paper across the counter, already signed and dated. Effective immediately, I clocked out. Didn't yell, didn't slam the door, just left. Across the street, the liquor store's neon sign buzzed in the rain. I bought a warm Coke and sat in the back of my old Toyota, watching the world blur through the streaks on the windshield. Through the glass, I saw Amanda barking orders at Tanya. Deshaun laughed at something she said, big and loud like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. I took a sip. The Coke was flat, warm, tasted like nothing. I sat there nearly an hour. No music, no calls, just the sound of rain and my own heartbeat counting time. Jamie would be out of school in 2 hours. I'd have to tell him there wouldn't be a paycheck next Friday. That rent might be late again. That the promise I'd made, to keep us steady, was cracking. There's a silence that comes when you've done everything right and it still isn't enough. Not dramatic silence, not movie scene heartbreak, just the hollow quiet of being unseen. That's when it hits you. Some places, some people aren't broken by accident. They're built to grind you down. They don't care about effort. They care about blame. And it's always easiest to blame the guy who's already fallen once. I thought about calling my PO, telling him the job was gone, asking what came next. But I didn't. I didn't want to hear that tone, the pity disguised as patience. So I drove home. The hallway light was dead again. Mail scattered on the floor. Jamie's sneakers by the door, caked in dried gym class mud. He looked up from the couch. "You okay?" I nodded, forcing a half smile. "You want something to eat?" he asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Yeah, I do." He got up, started the microwave. The hum filled the silence, soft and steady. Just that, one small kindness after a day full of quiet cruelty. 2 weeks passed. I picked up odd shifts with a buddy's moving company. Heavy work, nothing steady, but it kept the lights on. Jamie helped more around the house. Cleaned the kitchen. Stayed out of trouble. Talked less about Mom. Sometimes I still drive past that Burger King on Court Street. Same flickering sign. Same grease stains under the awning. But now I see it for what it is. Not a job that saved me, but a place built to squeeze the life out of people trying to start over. Amanda's still there. Tanya quit. I heard Deshaun got promoted, figures. Life doesn't always reward effort. That's the hard truth. Some systems only notice what they can punish. But I didn't fall back. Didn't drink. Didn't lash out. I'm still here. Because even if the world doesn't hand out fairness, you don't have to stop being fair to yourself. Doing the right thing doesn't always get you reward or redemption. But it builds something quieter, something harder to destroy. Self-respect, resilience, and the kind of strength no job can take from you. People always expect a horror story to come with something loud. Sirens, screaming, headlines, maybe even a body count. Mine's quieter than that. No blood, no chase, no one caught in the act. Just a cold Tuesday in Montana, a plastic tunnel slide, and the wrong kind of smile. I was 9 that winter. My parents had split when I was 7, and I only saw my dad every other weekend, if that. He wasn't the type to remember birthdays or school nights. But that day he showed up at school for pickup with his work truck idling out front and a promise. Burger King, just the 2 of us. He said we could hang out for a bit, maybe hit the play area if it wasn't packed. I didn't question it. At that age, any time with your dad feels like a gift, even if he's half listening. Checking football scores while you're telling him about your B+ in science. We pulled into the Burger King off Grant Creek Road. Snow was stacked high in the parking lot. The sun already low and stretching long shadows across the asphalt. Inside, the place was almost empty. 2 families. One toddler tossing fries on the floor. Another pair of tired parents scrolling their phones while their daughter argued about apple slices. The play place glowed in the corner like an old toy. Reds, blues, yellows, all dulled by years of sticky hands. I asked if I could go in while Dad ordered. "Sure," he said, already at the counter chatting with the cashier about the Grizz game. I slipped off my shoes and crawled through the padded entrance. It smelled like feet and dried ketchup, but to me it was still a castle. That's when I saw her. She was sitting cross-legged near the tunnel slide. I remember her coat first, faded green, the kind you'd find at a thrift store. Sunglasses indoors. She didn't look homeless, but she didn't look like she belonged either. Adults don't sit in play places, not unless they're chasing a laughing kid or pulling one out of a tube. She wasn't doing either. She noticed me watching and smiled. "Hey there," she said. "Your dad letting you have dessert today?" I froze halfway up the padded stairs. I don't know. You like shakes?" she asked. "I got an extra one, Oreo. It's over there if you want it." She nodded toward a tray near the emergency exit. I hadn't noticed it before. I didn't move. Something about the way she said it didn't feel right. The whole thing felt like a trap I couldn't explain, but instinctively distrusted. Still, she kept smiling. "I can walk you back to your dad if you're nervous," she said, starting to get up. That's when my legs took over. I ran. I bolted out of the play area, socks slipping on tile as I scrambled toward the counter. I grabbed my dad's jacket and yanked hard, breathless and wide-eyed. He looked down. "What?" "There's a lady," I gasped. "In the play place. She said I could have a milkshake. She's just sitting there." He frowned like I'd interrupted something more important. "What are you talking about?" I pointed behind us. "She said she had an Oreo shake for me, but she wasn't with anyone." Dad turned slowly, scanning the dining room, then the play zone. But by the time his eyes reached it, the woman was gone. The coat, the sunglasses, the tray, gone. He looked back at me. "You sure?" "Yes," I said, heart pounding. She was right there. One of the workers leaned over the counter. "Everything okay?" Dad waved him off. "Just some weird lady, maybe. Thought she was offering him food or something." He turned to me. "She probably just left. She said she'd walk me back to you," I whispered. "She knew I wasn't with her. She was inside the play place." Dad shifted, uncomfortable, not scared, just irritated. "Well, she's gone now, come on. Let's eat and go home." We sat in a booth near the window. My nuggets were too hot and I barely touched them. I kept looking at the glass, half expecting to see that green coat passing by. But there was nothing. No cars leaving, no footprints in the fresh snowbank outside. Just the reflection of the play place in the glass behind me, and the faint hum of the heater filling the silence. She was just gone. After a few minutes, Dad got up and asked to talk to the manager. A woman in a red polo came over, wiping her hands on a napkin as he explained what happened. When he asked about the cameras, she sighed. "The ones facing the play area haven't worked in a while," she said. "Maintenance was supposed to replace the wiring. I'm really sorry, sir. We've never had any issues like that before." That was it. We finished the meal in silence. I didn't ask to go back into the play place, and Dad didn't suggest it. We drove home with the heater hissing against the cold, neither of us talking. When he dropped me off at Mom's, he told her in vague terms, some lady creeping around, then gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't know the word for it then, but I felt watched. Not just earlier now, like something had noticed me and wasn't done yet. Weeks passed and the memory faded, softening like a half-remembered dream. Then one morning my school counselor handed out flyers. That's when everything snapped back into focus. It was one of those bright-colored safety sheets with a cartoon cop and bold letters about stranger danger. But my eyes locked on the small paragraph underneath. Multiple attempted abductions. Children around my age, under 10, public places, rest stops, fast food restaurants, no suspects caught. My stomach dropped. My fingers clenched the paper until it tore. That night, I tried to tell my mom. I said something like, "I think that lady at Burger King was one of them." But it came out uncertain, like I wasn't sure. She gave me a worried look. "Maybe she was just weird, honey. Not everyone who acts strange wants to hurt someone." I wanted to argue, to tell her how wrong she was, but I didn't. I went to my room instead. I kept the flyer in my backpack for months, folded behind my math folder. Every so often I'd take it out and stare at that cartoon cop like he owed me an explanation. I never saw her again, but I started noticing things. Adults who watched too long at the park, cars idling near the school gate without picking anyone up, people who stood too long inside gas stations without buying a thing. Even at 9, I could feel it. Some people moved differently, not like movie villains, just off, like shadows that didn't belong. Years went by. The memory stayed. I didn't tell anyone else until I was 20, sitting in a therapist's office in college. I was struggling with anxiety, crowds, noise, small talk. I avoided diners, fast food joints, anywhere that smelled like fryer oil. That smell made my chest tighten. My therapist listened quietly. When I finished, she said, "Trauma can hide in small moments, things that don't seem big at the time, but carry weight because of what could have happened, the what-ifs." Then she asked something I still can't shake. "What do you think would have happened if she'd reached you before you ran?" I didn't answer. I still can't. That's what claws at me. The not knowing. Last year, I drove past that same Burger King while visiting family in Missoula. It looked the same. Beige siding, same awkward spot by the car wash. But the play place was gone, replaced with extra tables and a TV. I parked for a while, watching people go in and out. Parents, kids, teenagers grabbing fries after school. Normal. Completely normal. I didn't go inside. I still think about her. Not every day, but often. I wonder how many kids she tried that with. If someone didn't run. if anyone ever caught her, or if she just moved on, to another town, another fast food joint, another cold Tuesday when no one was really watching. And sometimes, when I see a kid wander too far from their table, I tense up. Because I know how fast it can happen, how little it takes. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it offers a milkshake. And sometimes it just walks away, without ever being caught. The lesson I learned that night is simple, but it cuts deep. Trust your gut. No matter your age, no matter how harmless something looks, if it feels wrong, it probably is. And acting on instinct, even if it embarrasses you, might be the reason you get to grow up.